Um, yeah, let's see. KSP2, AMA, and dev updates. I want to play KSP today. I want to play KSP. That scene was one of the most metal scenes of all time. Yep. Yeah, Grabshark had introduced a lot of people to the exquisiteness of 80s music. I love 80s music. 80s music is my favorite. There's nothing wrong with some good tacos. You're not wrong, my good man. Running up that hill. Why do I... Damn it, Hooch! But hey, Hooch, it could be worse. It could be worse, man. Like, you know, like, I'm not about to be like, old man yells at cloud. But, dude, like, I listen to a very wide variety of music, okay? Wide variety. Anything from, like, Frank Sinatra all the way to, like, Hatebreed. Like, that's a long way. The music that I give music today, I give music nowadays a decent shot. Like, I give it a fair shot, and there's some good stuff out there, but yeah, I don't know, man. This I don't like music like that. That just this just. I'm the best. I'm the best. I saw a random thing in the room. I love lamp. Coffee cup. Webcam. Twitch chat. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I can't do it. I can't do it, man. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. It's too real. It's too real. Ordon, what's this? Here you go, if you wanted a Starship launching GIF. Oh, yeah. Chief already sent me one. I actually have to go check that one out, but yes. Sounds like you've never listened to today's music. No, Jackal. I've listened to today's music. You just said just because you said the opposite of what I just said doesn't make what you said true. I've listened to today's music. And there is good stuff out there. Like Greta Van Fleet, excellent. Excellent. Great band. Great band. There are others, but there's this specific like subset of like hip hop that it's just I can't do it, man. I can't do it. It's actually proven modern day music is actually worse in all ways. It's worse in almost all ways. Is this a science channel? You see. Io sono science man. Io sono science man. E sì. Che cosa? Tu sei un pazzo. Val via da qui. That's from Family Guy. Now, dude, that's the thing about music. And this is why I try not to hate on music. There's certain types of music that I don't really like. But that doesn't mean that somebody else doesn't like it. I get it. Me, I'm starting to get old man yells at cloud, and that's kind of bad. It's not good. And yes, Grab Shark, I will be heard. Well, I will be heard. Yeah. Now is the time for me to rise to my feet. It's a great song, man. Nice, Skeptical. Right on, man. Before I was asking to use Bremo to use a... Yeah, Neon, I don't know, man. It's just, yeah. I don't get the same that I get. And guys, the funny thing is that my musical taste is not even from when I was a kid. My dad brought me up on classic rock, so my musical taste is like twice removed from my age. You know, like It's true. More as a joke. I'd use a big. Yeah, you made it. You made it. You made a typo. The W. You made a big typo. Nothing wrong with sampling. No, I don't mind sampling, dude. They're Beastie Boys, man. Beastie Boys, dude, sampled everything, man. Stumpy. Stumpy McLonely some limbs. Stumpy McOnly some limbs. That's a doozy. Thanks for the sub, man. I appreciate it. I've heard of that band, Grab Shark, yeah. That dyslexia, though. Freudian slip. Do you want to be woken up with a dong? Love your content? Thanks, Stump. Right on, man. Yes, Stan. I am Lord. I don't mind Lord Huge Crit for what it's worth, but honestly, we can't talk about Lord with I am Lord. Yeah. Hey, be skeptical. Thanks for the prime sub. I'm okay with both autotune and nonsense. Yeah, erudite. Hey, people like music. People don't like music, man. It's important to have a wide stretch of musical taste. Like, you gotta have you expose yourself to as much music as possible, and you'll find music that you like. But you don't hate on other people's music, man. It's like there are types of music that I can't really listen to. But that doesn't mean that that's not somebody's favorite song, you know? I don't know. Lord Randy Marsh, Grab Shark is good, but I prefer Steamy Ray Vaughan. Yep. Heck, what for? He goes down there, he gets up on stage, and he craps his pants. What's the guy's name? His name's Steamy Ray Vaughan. Stevie Ray Vaughan, ain't he the guitar player? No. I said Steamy Ray Vaughan. How about old school hip hop? I love old school hip hop. I have GTA San Andreas to thank for that one. Yep. Disturbed. Yeah. Oh, nice. Take Back Your Life tour. That's awesome, Jack. Are you gonna see them in June? Right on, man. Steamy Ray Vaughan just craps his britches. What for? West Coast Classics, my guy. And I have my dad and Vice City. Seriously, Vice City. Yeah, that. I was just a wee lad when I bought Vice City when I was 14 and played it. And there were some musicians that I knew, right? Like, I knew Motley Crue, and I found the station with Motley Crue on it, V-Rock. Oh, this is Jez Torre. You're listening to V-Rock. Keep on rocking. Yeah. And that was the end of that. All right. David Bowie. You know what, Erudite? I respect David Bowie. I really do. I don't find myself listening to his music very much. But he is a damn good musician, or was a damn good musician. In my mind, he hasn't left. Like, that's just how my brain works. Like, we still have the music, so we still have them. Like, my brain still hasn't parsed that Eddie Van Halen went home. And Neil Peart. My brain hasn't put those together yet, so they still exist in my head. Same with Lemmy. Yes. Yep. 90 Snoop, fantastic, dude. Yep. All right, I'll check that out. Grab Shark, we'll check that out later. I'll query that into my list. Dio. Heaven and hell. My name is Lemmy, and yes, I miss it. Yeah, he's not dead. He just went home. Okay. He just retired, all right? Rock musicians aren't killed in action. They're just missing in action, okay? What do you mean you bought Vice City at 14? You did what we all did and asked some stranger. Actually, Kane, so how that worked is I used to mow lawns for money when I was a lot younger. So I asked my dad to go buy the game and gave him the cash. That's pretty much how that worked. And my dad did not. I think had he had known what that game, what Vice City was, probably wouldn't have done that. But no, Aramis. We're gonna jump into it here in a second. I told ChatGPT to write a classic rock song that. Guys, is ChatGPT lyrics the new mixtape? I made a mixtape for you. Check out my mixtape, bro. Because I know that people like querying like lyrics and song lyrics and poetry in ChatGPT and then sharing it with other people. Is that like a new? I made a mixtape for you. 80% of kids don't know what mixtapes are anymore. Okay, yeah, I might be dating myself a little bit. Oh, that's cool, W. Respect, that's how I got my first mini bike, mowing lawns and delivering papers. Nick, I started working when I was 16. Oh yeah, my parents made me go get a job, and they made me do after school sports. It sucked because all I wanted to do was play video games. But I hate admitting that they were right, but they were absolutely right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, so I mowed lawns basically when I was 12. I would mow our lawn and then other people's lawns, right? And then I started working when I was 16, and I worked at as a cashier at a Papa Gino's, which is a local Boston pizza chain. Very good, actually. Papa Gino's is awesome. Still eat the pizza to this day. That was in like 04, 05. And I worked at Papa Gino's basically until I graduated. Yeah. Yeah, I've been working for a long time, man. Long time. Yeah. Alucard, you want to hear something American? Listen to this, dude. Papa Gino's has a type of white pizza. So white pizza is a pizza with no sauce, right? So it's dough with cheese over it. And, it's cheese sauce instead of tomato sauce, right? Papa Gino's has a type of pizza that is a white pizza, and the cheese sauce is like macaroni and cheese sauce, right? So it's like cheese fountain cheese sauce. And then there's macaroni and cheese on top of that, and bacon bits. That's right, Movax. Yep. Yeah, you're going to have to do stuff you don't want to do. That's right. Dude, it is a mac and cheese and bacon pizza. Yes, it is, dude. Okay. It is the most American thing ever. It is horrifically bad for you. But if you tried it, you'd be like, oh my goodness, I want the whole pizza. Your Italian ancestors are screaming. Yeah, they are. But the American in me is like, hell yeah, brother. I've had it. I can confirm, dude. It is. See, that's the thing about American food. It's disgusting for you. I'm not even gonna deny that for a second. It is carb overload, but also it's really freaking good. I'm telling you, you see a skinny American, that person has mental discipline and mental fortitude that you are incapable of understanding. Because every freaking food here is like that. Every freaking food. It's all like that, man. You know how freaking hard it is to not gain like 50 freaking pounds? You know how hard that is? From a European can confirm. Dude, if I if I ate, dude, and I could, if I ate that every day, I would need to run like 5 miles every day to just to break even, just to burn off all that excess energy. Like, it's not easy, man. Eon's not a skinny American. I don't get this way by being picky about our total trash food. Eon, you're proportional, okay? You are proportional. Okay, what pizza? Linus, it's a mac and cheese pizza. So it's pizza dough with cheese sauce on it, like the cheese that you'd have in with mac and cheese, and then baked macaroni and cheese on top of it with bacon. It is amazing. It's amazing. All right. I fully acknowledge that it's terrible for you. I fully acknowledge that my Italian ancestors are like, no! Yeah, but also, damn, is it good. I saw that yesterday. It's weird. We need a pizza place to do a poutine pizza. Oh, no. You know what, Electron? It's probably better that there is no good poutine places around Boston. I'm sure there's one, and if there is, don't tell me. I don't want to know. As far as I'm concerned, you have to go to Canada to get good poutine. The only other place I've had good poutine is the Midwest, which is kind of like Canada light, which is fine. That's okay. That's okay. That makes sense. But it's better if I just don't acknowledge the fact that there are places with poutine around here, because I would literally eat it every day. It is delicious, and it's the most American, non-American food I've ever had. I love poutine. It's probably because I grew up in close proximity to Canada. Or close-ish. Canada's about 6 hours away. Oh, dude, cat snacks. The Midwest is amazing. You will eat the most hearty food you can find there. It's so good. It's so damn good. It's so damn good. You can get poutine pizza literally around the corner from your house. You're in Ontario. Yeah, see, Hooch, it's better if I just remember that that's far away. Yeah, because I will rationalize the fact that I can get really good poutine relatively easily, and then I will eat it every day. And that's not good. That's not a good thing. Yeah, pretty much. Yep. No, hey, Azanar, 41 months. It's delicious, man. Come to Rhode Island. We got poutine. No. Watch this. No, you watch this. That was literally just linked a second ago. Yep. Okay, thanks. That's just nightmare fuel. All right. Yep. That's just as weird as I remember it. I eat poutine at least once a week. Don't blame you. Here's a recipe for you. Why would you do this? But see, that's the thing, man. You can't get good cheese curds around here. It's the Northeast. You can't get good cheese curds around here. We don't do cheese. I have to go to Vermont, and no one wants to go to Vermont. Not even people from Vermont. And up there with their green mountains and stuff. Just yeah, right, cat snacks? No, I got spoiled. I got spoiled by first of all, Canadian poutine. And then the Midwest, the cheese in the Midwest is just exquisite. I actually have nothing against Vermont. I just felt like giving you guys crap because I'm from Massachusetts. It's my job. Oh, Ghost Mirror, that's dope. I have 3 cheese factories within 20 miles of you. Nice. God, I actually was up in your neck of the woods the other day, dude, when we were driving back from Detroit. I was up in your neck of the woods, dude. All right. Let's stop talking about food. That's not a good idea. So, Dev update. Ready? You got the best poutine here in Quebec. I'm not disagreeing with you, Cyclone. I'm not disagreeing with you. It's like, you want good seafood? You come to me. Or Nova Scotia, bud. Go up to Nova Scotia there, bud. You want good seafood, you got to be near the ocean. You want good poutine? You have to be in Quebec. You have to speak Quebecsois. Oh, for real, Stumpy. Oh, yeah. No, it's bad. It's terrible. I don't know why I live here. I live here because family. We don't do the Yes, I know. You want to have your own French identity, but you do not want to be French. We are not like them, except you are like them in every way. Except you are not. Because that is the French way to disagree with people that are like you. No! We are not like them. Even though we speak the same language. Dude, why do you think the word contrarian, a contrarian it's French? Because French like disagreeing with each other. No! That is not the right way to do it. You are not proper French. No, you are not proper French. It's true. Nobody knows what they're doing over there. They're always just fighting over who's more French. We do the same thing. We kind of took a cue from you. So. I'm French and we don't understand French Canadian. Oh, yes you do, Napoleon. Don't lie. Of course you do. You just pretend that you don't. You just pretend that you don't. There's even shawarma poutine at a Middle Eastern restaurant. Oh, I'd get down on that, Hooch. Absolutely. Tony, wasn't Napoleon Corsican? Yeah. Yeah. Dev update? Dev update? Dev update. Let's roll. Ah, there we go. Okay, cool. Sorry, needed a jump start. Actually, it's not difficult to... Wait, are they... Okay, Senra, okay, ignorant American here. Are they actually different? Because... Oh... Last time I was in Montreal, I spoke French. Like, the limited amount of French that I do. And if they're different, I may have insulted somebody. Wait, how are they different? Real quick, before we get into the dev update. How are they different? What's the difference? Is it just like dialect? Like, is it different like how American English is different than the Queen's English? They are different accents, expressions, and words. Okay. Okay. Quebec French is like slang for the dialect is oh, okay, Napoleon. So it's like when I try to understand a British person and they're like, and you're just like, yeah. Yeah. French Canadian is pre-French Revolution French. Interesting. Mostly accent, but some words aren't the same. Huh. I mean, I suppose that makes sense. There's American ways to say things and there's British ways to say the same thing. So that makes sense to me. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, cool. Right. All systems, there's a lot of Canadians in here. I do not know why. Even inside Quebec, there's a different accent. No crap, dude. Interesting. Interesting. Huh. Today I learned. Cool. Right on. But also, I'm right about the disagreeing thing. You know how I know I'm right? Because we do that with British people. We do that with British people. Our version of English is better than your English. And they're like, oh, no, it's not, mate. And we're like, yeah, it is. And they're like, no, it's not. It's not. Still pisses me off about the Avro. Facts. When French Canadians say oui, they sound like a duck. Wah. Wah. They don't protest, so they can't be French. True. Dude, if you see me messing with my nose a lot, it's because of allergies, man. I'm like, oh, come on, stop. Thanks, zombie. The fact that you tried to speak French while visiting is awesome. Respect. Kerbal, I usually do that when I go to other countries. I play a game to try and make people think I'm not American. I do that all the time. Yeah. 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 That was hard to do in Japan. Yeah, that was difficult. I try to pick up the language and be respectful. That's all. 46 Starlink satellites confirmed. On Finland, you'll be labeled as Finn. Alright, I will take that. That's fine with me. Although I'd like to think that I could, confuse a couple of people. No, whenever I go to Montreal, so here's the thing. People in Quebec will start by I notice this pattern. They will start by speaking French to you. And then if you don't understand, they'll switch to English because most people speak English and French, right? I tried to play a game to make it so nobody ended up speaking English to me. And I did it. I did it. Just try to imitate Kimmy and you're good. Yeah, yes. Terve. Mm-hmm. Yeah, take the car was run real good today. Just that's good day for me and the team. But yeah. Guy's still my favorite driver. All right, you can't bunk on the Finns, man. Finns can drive cars, dude. I respect that. Also, My Summer Car is the greatest game ever. Yeah, Purple. So when I was in the city, I would say if I went into a convenience store in Montreal to buy something, I would make sure no one spoke English to me. I would try to do that. It's a fun game to play. Can you blend? You know what I mean? Oh yeah, I can do that. You speak French? Not really, not a lot. I don't practice. Practice is how you get good at language, but I can get around, and it's enough to get around, and it's enough to fool people. What I do good is accents. I can do accents. Yeah. So I can pick up the dialect pretty easy. I just got to listen to it for a little while. On a scale from 1 to 10, how American would you say you are? 10. Erudite, what I tell people is that I'm ethnically Italian, and you don't. Just because I was born in North America doesn't mean that I'm not ethnically Italian. I talk with my hands. You don't erase thousands upon thousands of years of Italianness by just moving across an ocean. That doesn't work that way. But also, I don't consider myself to be an Italian citizen. I'm an American, man. If you sent me to Italy, I'd be screwed. I would not. People would they'd be like, oh, and I'd be like, yeah, man, all right. Pizza. I'd have to listen to it, Pan. But, dude, this is such a pain in the butt, and I see this with people that try to mimic American accents from the UK. There are so many different British dialects in such a small area that it's really easy when you're doing an impression to veer into one or the other. Yeah, that's really hard to get right. Come to Italy, it's fun. Oh, Marco, I'm not going to say that I wouldn't have a good time. Because once again, just because I'm from over here does not erase... there are Italian things that I had drilled into my head by my grandmother, by Nonna, when I was younger, that doesn't... I'd be able to get along. But no, can't speak Italian. Should fix that, though. Changes on average every 25 miles. Bryce, that's the hard part. Yep. Your friend sounds like the English trying to imitate French people, but sound like a crazy guy. Good. Basically, the Italian is moving ahead saying Gorlami. Gorlami. Dominica de Coco. Yeah, alright. Let's do this. So, you know what's messed up? I can understand. I can get Italian, one, because I learned Spanish in high school, and whether they like it or not, Spanish, French, and Italian are kind of similar. There are similar words, so you pick up similar words. Portuguese too. They're all Romance languages, the Latin based, right? So I could get along, but once again, I can't speak it. And also, when I was really young, my grandmother only spoke Italian. So like both my parents worked, so my grandmother would babysit me. So she only spoke Italian around the household. So I can get bits and pieces of it. Yeah, more Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian, Ben. Yeah, for real. Like if you know Spanish, you could probably get along in Italy. And I know pretty good Spanish. Spanish is the language that I'm second most fluent in, aside from English. I know Spanish. I took 4 years of it. I should know it. Just woke up. What you miss? Starlink launched this morning. Aqualux said, yeah, the engine coughed at the landing, but it was just residual propellants. Had a little bit of a beep. Had too much Taco Bell. No idea. I'm from Spain, almost 34. Never in my life could I understand a word of French. Trust me, not a single word. Interesting. Yo comprendo francés. Yo comprendo francés, Ben. Un poco. Un poco. I was about to say it's easy to understand. So that would be... Hold on. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. Es fácil comprender francés. I think. I don't think comprender is a word. But it would be to understand. Maybe? I don't know. I speak Spanish better when I'm drunk. Nice. Comprender or entender. Gracias. You look like a Brazilian trying to talk in Spanish. Nice. Nice. You say comprendré. Comprendre. You're what the French call l'incompétent. I know Spanish. Una cerveza, por favor. You don't need to say una, Hooch. You could just say cerveza, por favor. Cat. Nice, Flykin. So, Shin, the other thing is that all those places that I worked at, all those pizza places, had a lot of Brazilians because Framingham in Massachusetts is like the largest population of Brazilian people outside of Brazil. Just like parts of Brazil have the largest population of Japanese people outside of Japan, which is strange. But Japanese-Brazilian fusion food is delicious, by the way. Delicious. Yeah, just in case you were wondering. But yeah, so I know a little bit of Portuguese, but I haven't spoken it in such a long time that I know how to say like, hi, how are you? And like peppers, because I worked in a pizza store. Pimentão. Cebola. Pimentão. Galinha, which is funny because that's chicken in Italian, and it's the same in Portuguese. Interlagos. Did you already eat coinha feijada? No, I don't know what that is. Wait, I grew up there. The concentration of first-gen Brazilians isn't everywhere? Yeah, Ryan, that's right. Cinco cerveza, por favor. Five beers? Good luck, man. I'm looking at pictures of the Viasat 3 satellite. Can you tell me what that big circle on a stick is? Yeah, sure. Let's see. It's an antenna, dude. Yeah, big antenna. Dude, the mechanical engineering behind this thing is absolutely absurd. That's the same thing. See that right there, that tube? Tube. Yeah, that's an antenna, man. It's a parabolic antenna that folds out in space. Yeah, frickin' transformer, man. Yeah. Tube. So, yeah, that thing folds out and it's on a gigantic antenna. An important thing to understand, and Tony, you probably know this. I'm just saying it for anybody else. So the transmitter is right there. I think the antenna's facing the wrong direction. The transmitters should be pointing at the antenna. It's a satellite dish. It's a giant satellite dish in space. That's what it is. But the reason why it doesn't look like a kind of a straight parabolic antenna like what you'd see down here, so a parabolic antenna is what everybody colloquially calls like a satellite dish. See that? That's just a parabolic antenna. So basically what it does is it radiates out a signal from this thing, the transmitter in the center, right? And the thing about it is when you radiate out, when you have an antenna that's sending a signal, that's sending a radio wave, it radiates out hemispherically. And this is why the antenna is a giant dish. What happens is it bounces the signal off of the dish to get the signal to converge instead of diverge. It's pretty interesting stuff. But up in space, right, you don't need all this structure to hold the dish up. And because of that, and needing to be packed inside of a fairing, right, the parabolic antenna looks completely different. It doesn't look like what it would look like down here because you don't need any structure. It's just the dish. That's it. That's for receiving signals, not sending. Care to elaborate, Movax? This guy tattooed Starship on it and he got it wrong. Yep. Isaac, it's backwards, man. Parabolic dishes on Earth is for receiving signals. You have to try to eat cojina, if possible, and brigadeiro is the best thing. All right, man. All right. But that's... Focus blurry signal to 1 point. So Movax, okay, I have a question. If that is the case here, if that's the case, if parabolic antennas are just for receiving, why does NASA use gigantic parabolic antennas to signal spacecraft in deep space? Am I missing something here? Oh, that makes sense. Okay. No, Isaac's all right. That guy's cool. I'm actually asking. I'm not trying to be a jerk. Is there something that I'm missing here? Yeah, Super Heavy center 3 engines. One of them went out, not two. It needs to amplify the signal. Okay. Isn't that what the parabolic antenna is for? To get a convergent signal? No? Am I wrong? I guess they could do both, but TV parabolic antennas can only receive. Okay, so it sounds like both to send and receive you could use a parabolic antenna, but you need a transmitter as opposed to a receiver, right? Am I thinking about this correctly? It allows highly directional transmission. Yeah, Jeff, right? Because it converges. The signal converges instead of diverges. Think about like a flashlight versus a laser pointer. That's the idea. That's what the parabolic antenna does. It's designed to laser point a signal to a convergence. And if I'm remembering right, modulating the power can set your convergence distance. If I'm remembering correctly. Once again, radio waves are, dude, that's strange that those even exist. It's like electricity. Like when you think about what electricity is actually doing, you're like, so this thing is just shooting electrons through it? Why does that work? How are we transmitting energy through a solid? That's weird. Can't remember, EJ. Do you have a ham license? I don't, Paul. No. What I know about radio transmission and radio operation is literally from you guys. Same with fire. What is fire other than heat? Yeah, right, Veljex? It's universe, man. Very strange. Like, once again, you know, I'm not trying to be a jerk. Like, I don't know that much about radio waves, and I'll admit that I have no clue. Like, I know about convergent and divergent signals from the Deep Space Network, from NASA's DSN. I know about it from that. There's 3 Deep Space Network dishes, and it's interesting because they have convergence distances between the 3, which is actually really freaking cool. And their convergence distance, guys, is literally, it's exactly where TDRS is. Yeah. So NASA has a set of satellites that are on that dotted line, right? Actually, the convergence seems to be a little bit before it, but that's not bad. Yeah, okay, sorry, I said that wrong. Excuse me. So, if you look, the Deep Space Network convergence points between Goldstone, Canberra, and Madrid are just before geosynchronous. So, like, if you're in Goldstone, California, and you want to get a signal, and the satellite that you need a signal from, you need to use Canberra, Canberra will take that signal, right? It'll get the signal from the big antenna, and then it'll bounce it off TDRS. If I'm remembering correctly, the tracking data and relay satellites are here, here, and here. TDRS is triangulated around Earth. Those are NASA's low-orbit communication satellites. I think they can bounce signals from DSN to DSN station off of TDRS, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm in college helping a professor do radio astronomy. Cool stuff. It is cool, right? Yeah. That's really neat. Napoleon, remember, if you guys remember a little while back in KSP1, I was trying to lay down a deep space network. I was trying to do this. This is exactly what I was trying to make. Last for a little more of an explanation. I'm not an expert. I watch a lot of nerds and parabolic antennas. Okay. I think the shape is different. The nature of these things I'm receiving. It's not a column, Flykin. It converges. But yeah, I understand. I mean, the geometry of the parabolic antenna definitely has something to do with it. But yeah, all that thing is, all Viasat 3 is, and I say that like it's not some crazy freaking achievement that there's like a huge parabolic antenna up in space, right? All it is one of those. It's just what would look like in space. It's time to wake up. It's what it would look like in space. That's what a parabolic antenna looks like in space. You only need to power the transmitter. The dish is not doing anything. So all the power generation systems are down here, where the transmitter is. I think they use solar stations for TDRS. DSN is for deep space. Well, the DSN has smaller antennas, Jim. But so that would mean. But yeah, I would guess that they bounce the signal using a smaller antenna. Maybe not the exact deep space network, but you get the idea. My phone alarm went off at the same time. Right on, man. Should I rip Jerry Springer? Uh-oh. Jerry. Don't they send signals from Earth via lasers? They can, Movax. Yeah. The problem with sending a signal from the surface up to a satellite using optics, so not fiber optics, just optics, you can do that. The problem with doing that is gas diffusion. The atmosphere is in the way, and light does diffuse gas. That's why the sun looks different down here than it does up in space. He went to that big brawl in the sky. Shame. But yeah, Tony, good question, man. Now we got this. Now we got the space juices flowing. Let's go. And by that I mean coolant. because you need that in space or else you melt. When's the AMA? So the AMA was last Friday, Sesh, but I'll go through the dev update from last Friday. It was posted right before the AMA. Yeah, the AMA was posted on the 20th, but we have audio for it as well. And I'll play the audio and keep the questions up on screen. The sun looks different in space. Yep. It's white. Yeah, German, it's white. White in space. If we were just in a spacecraft looking out the window, white. Yeah, it's not yellow. That's the gases, that's the atmosphere diffusing the light from the sun. I mean, there's the magnetic field too, if you really want to be technical, but a spacecraft orbiting around low Earth orbit is still inside of the magnetic field. Ah, nice, Jim. How'd the Bruins play yesterday? They played okay, dude, but too many mistakes. Too many mistakes, man. They're not playing coherently. I mean, you know, it's what I always say. We got screwed on a couple of calls, Salyut, but look, that can't be your excuse every time your team freaking loses, right? Like, people do this with football all the time. Oh, we got hosed by the refs. Oh, we got hosed by the refs. Oh, we got hosed by the refs. If you know that the refs are going to make a terrible call and you still go into a game expecting them not to make a terrible call, that's your fault. That's your fault. Play better hockey or play better sports, you know? Yeah, Pasternak hasn't showed up in the playoffs, Tim. Kind of like, what are you doing? So they're starting their downslide right before the playoffs. That was a playoff game that they lost. They lost it in overtime, 4-3. Flyers fan, my existence is pain. Yeah. So don't give them the excuse to make a terrible call. Exactly. We got hosed on a pretty bad interference call once we took the if I'm remembering right, the Bruins went up 3-2 and we got hosed on a terrible interference call and they immediately tied it. And then they won in overtime. They played great. Like, Florida played good. They played good. I mean, they got hosed on a couple of penalty calls too. But which once again, that's the thing, dude. Like, you know, if you go and do the same thing, if you go into every game expecting the calls to be immaculate, like the referee or the umpire or whomever, expecting them not to make a bad call, even though you know they're going to make a bad call, that's your fault. That is your problem, not theirs. Even though they make terrible calls. Terrible calls should be expected. Adapt. Earth is flat. Checkmate, atheists. Nice. You see that, chat? That's bait. The problem with bad refs is that they cancel out good teams' ability. Yeah, Hellfish, I mean, other good teams cancel out other good teams' ability. I don't. Look, man. You could say, I guess a better way to explain it would be to just cope with it. Deal with it. It's going to happen. You're going to get hosed on a bad call. It happens every freaking time. And if you're not getting hosed by a bad call, the other team is. Deal with it. There's nothing you can do about, like, what are we going to do to fix this problem? There's no way to fix it. Referees are idiots. Oh, how'd you know exactly where to point? It's because I'm good at what I do. Need AI refs. That's why MLB should be replaced with robots. Yeah, and then people will just say the AI is wrong. If it's not one thing, it's another, Hellfish. If people are insistent on complaining, they're just gonna complain. They're gonna complain about everything. Even if you appease them, they're still gonna complain. See what I'm saying? Like, just deal with it. You gotta deal with it. Hasn't Boston won enough? Winning is like money. You can never have enough of it. It's competition. If you're not playing to win, why are you competing? South Rod, 62-month resub. Hawks in 7. I don't know, man. The way we're playing, The way we're playing, man, we ain't going to get very far. So the Bruins getting swept in the first round. Do you watch hockey? It's 3-2 in the series. KSB2 question. I built an upper stage with docking ports, secured with struts. When I undocked in space, the struts didn't detach and the game still thinks there are 2 parts, but only 1 ship. Slow Chief, I haven't found a way around that one. That happened to me, and that's the last thing I did before I shut Kerbal off like a week and a half ago. Yeah, Gary, that sucks. The Stanley Cup playoffs is the single hardest tournament in sports. Winning a Stanley Cup is not a fluke. It takes hard work, perseverance. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, Movax, I'm with you on that one, dude. Yeah. Go Stars. No one likes the Bruins. Of course nobody likes the Bruins. Nobody likes the Bruins, but we don't like you either. I wouldn't be a Bruins fan if I liked other freaking hockey teams. Now, granted, the only other hockey team that I do like is the Red Wings. I don't mind the Red Wings. The Red Wings are all right. And that's not just because of Bremo. I was a fan of Detroit sports even before I met Bremo. I'm pretty big Lions fan for a long time. Since the Caldwell era. See, that's something that Detroit fans and Boston fans, we can get along with. We both hate the Maple Leafs. And the Penguins. And the Flyers. See? He'll fix it, Penguin. It's going to take some time. I still don't understand why they got rid of Bertuzzi, but we'll take him. He's a great player. New Yorker, I agree. Stop it. My brother's a huge Leafs fan. Poor guy, dude. They pulled one out the other day. Hooch, that was a really good game. Dude, I won't miss playoff hockey. I don't even care if the Bruins aren't playing. I won't miss playoff hockey. I watched a lot of hockey yesterday after the stream. But you don't hate Danish hockey teams. I'm a Bruins fan. I hate every other hockey team, Paul, except for the Red Wings. That's just kind of my job. I need to go back to Boston, amazing city. I went to a back alley Chinese restaurant that served beef after the bars were closed. Yep, Chinatown, man. Boston's a good time, dude. I miss Tuukka Rask, my guy. My guy. Hey, Uli did a good job last night, man. He did a pretty good job. He just made one mistake at the end. I'm not much of a hockey fan, but I do enjoy playoff hockey. Well, Hooch, you're Canadian. Of course you enjoy hockey. You enjoy hockey whether you like it or not. It's just like I enjoy cheeseburgers. I really don't have a say in the matter now, do I? Your city hockey team is called the Seagulls? As a Flyers fan myself, I join you in hating the Flyers. Yeah. It's just like it's like with Bremo. Bremo claims that she does not like cars. But she grew up in Dearborn. You like cars whether you like it or not. You don't understand. This has been instilled in you since birth. Bremo knows more about Henry Ford than I do. Which is hilarious to me. That's really funny. For someone that claims to not like cars, you know a lot about cars. Nice, Panta. Nice. Oh, there you go, Jake. Right on. If only Ilmar could have performed in Buffalo, but didn't come alive until he went to Boston. Could be on the Dion. Much making a difference, dude. Uli, he messed up last night, dude. I don't know why. Bruins have this incessant need to pass when they're on defense and they get control of the puck in their own zone. They have this incessant need to put it in front of the net. And that literally cost them 3 goals last night. I don't understand. I don't understand. Why are we centering the puck in our own zone? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Why would someone do that? Why would someone do that? All right. Let's go. Dev notes. We're a little bit behind schedule now. Let's go. So, good afternoon, Kerbal Knots. This is from Nate here. Nate took a spring break here. Good afternoon, Kerbal Nuts. I'm back from spring break, all charged up by the great feedback we've been getting since the release of Patch 2. Thanks to all who've taken the time to share their feedback about the update. As always, it's been very helpful to know what's gone well and what needs improvement. By far the most controversial element of the patch has been a change to maneuver nodes that prevents players from planning maneuvers beyond the fuel allotment currently aboard their vehicle. This change was made to prevent the maneuver node from lying to the player. Because the maneuver plans in KSP2 factor in the behavior of the vehicle under thrust, a necessity for planning future long-term burn interstellar flights, and because this behavior is contingent on the changing mass of the vehicle as the changing mass of the vehicle as fuel is expended, any planning that takes place beyond what is achievable with the current fuel load must necessarily give an incorrect result. That said, there's clearly a desire to do aspirational maneuver planning beyond a vehicle's current capacity, as was possible in KSP1. Our team is looking into options now, and we'll update you here when we have a good solution. Thanks again for highlighting this as a feature that could use some more time in the oven. Okay? All right. Right now, we're full steam ahead on future development of the upcoming science update, timing to be determined. Okay, as well as continuing work on performance, stability, and thermal systems, please. We're also working on a few new parts, which we expect to release prior to the science update. Chris Adderley, aka Nirtea, has cooked up some lovely vacuum-optimized engines with extendable nozzles to help fill out the upper end of Methalox progression. Here's a sneak peek at one of them, built by artist Pablo Olvides. Some RL10B2 action. Very nice. An extendable nozzle. Yep. Extendable nozzle on screw jacks, guys. That's supposed to be like a RL10B2. The RL10B2 is the Delta 4 upper stage motor for the DCSS, and also is used on the... it's also used on the ICPS on SLS as well. So the RL10 is a expander cycle engine. Extraordinary. It's a Hydrolox expander cycle engine. Very, very efficient. About as efficient as you possibly can get for a rocket motor that's using chemical propellants. Now, the RL10B2 is over here. It's this one. This variant has a gigantic nozzle attached to it. That's, well, 77 inches. So I'll do the calculator out. 77 divided by 30. So 2.5 meters. Or no, 2.5 meters. I have to divide that by 3. It's about a meter tall, the extender. Sorry, I did the math wrong. I needed to do inches to feet and then to meters. So divide that by 3 again. So it's just a little over a meter tall. It's a big nozzle. So right here, how this engine works is actually the engine is on screw jacks, basically. There are little electric motors here, and there's 3 of them. They're triangulated. And these electric motors are on a screw jack, and there's a captive nut attached on the ring of the nozzle. And when the electric motors turn on, it'll unscrew the screws, or the threaded rod right here, these things, and the nozzle will actually, it'll extend. Delta 4 has been using that since the late 90s, right? Sorry, it's a little bug. It's been using that since the late 90s, early 2000s. And that's actually a really, really good nozzle. SLS also uses this as well. The reason why they have to extend the nozzle is because of space, staging space. So it looks like we have basically an RL10B2 right there, or at least a Kerbalized version of it. The whole engine, I'm talking about the nozzle. The whole engine is gigantic, guys. Here, let me see if I can find a picture of somebody standing next to one. Yeah, that kind of gets the point across. Oh, there we go. This is from a Spaceflight Now article from literally 24 years ago. There you go. See what I'm talking about? Actually, yeah, the nozzle extension. Yeah, I did my math wrong. The motor's gigantic with its extender nozzle, but that's it right there. Mm-hmm. I thought they were compressed gas operated. 4-in-1, they might be. They might be. It could be that. They could use ullage. Yeah, that's possible. I always thought it was electric motors, but I could be wrong. Could be wrong. But yeah, the nozzle extends, which is actually really freaking cool. I mean, those look like electric motors, but once again, I don't know. Could be wrong on that one. See? That's how the motor is packed. Obviously not with a cut hole in the side of the nozzle, but yeah, RL10s are insanely good motors. So RL10s are using an expander cycle. So what's an expander cycle and how does that work? I'm trying to find a good plumbing diagram that we could show. Oh, this is from NASA, so this will work. So check this out. How this works is you have the fuel valve right here, right? And fuel, they'll start letting fuel trickle in through the fuel valve. That valve, the fuel is liquid hydrogen. And when it goes through the valve, it hits the nozzle. The nozzle, being at ambient temperature, is pretty warm, right? And that hydrogen will start to evaporate. It'll turn to gaseous hydrogen, right? And that gaseous hydrogen will go out the top here of the nozzle, not through the injector, but it'll go out the nozzle, and that the gaseous hydrogen will pressurize inside of there because it's being heated up. It'll pressurize the line, and then it drives a turbo pump. It drives the pump that turns the fuel, that's what turns the fuel impeller on. And RL10s are actually particularly interesting. The reason why they're particularly interesting is because if you noticed in that plumbing diagram, right? In that plumbing diagram, this has it driving both turbines. That's not exactly how an expander cycle on an RL10 works. RL10s have gearboxes in them. They have a transmission, believe it or not. Yep, transmission. Right there. Let me just back it out here. There we go. Where's this picture coming from? Engine history. All right, check this out. Look, see? Gearbox. So there's your hydrogen turbine right there. The hydrogen turbine takes the gas, the heated up gas from touching the nozzle, spins the fluid impeller. The impeller pumps fuel into the injector plate. And on the bottom of the hydrogen turbo shaft here, there is a gearbox. And that gearbox drives the liquid oxygen pump. There's your LOX impeller over there. And that's what, the gaseous hydrogen meets the liquid oxygen inside of the RL10. And boom, you get, there's an igniter in there and you get rocket engine. Automatic catching. It's a 1-speed transmission. Yep. It's a geared turbine. Pretty cool, huh? The reason why it needs to be geared is because they need a different RPM from the liquid oxygen pump to the hydrogen pump. The hydrogen pump actually, well, you guys tell me, which one spins faster? Look at the gears. Which one of those is going to spin faster? So simply opening up the valve, Flykin, is what starts the motor. Yep. The smaller one, hydrogen, is going to spin faster. And look at the impeller difference. The hydrogen, you need to deliver way more hydrogen than you do liquid oxygen. Yeah, there's your fuel ratio right there. Pretty cool, huh? Crazy thing about the RL10 is that it's super throttleable. Very, very throttleable. You could just, the valve right there, all you have to do to throttle this motor is open and close the valve a little bit and meter your fuel flow. The more hydrogen you introduce to the nozzle, right, the faster the turbo will go. The faster the turbine will go. The more the rocket engine will go. The reason why, now, so is that like a feature of an RL10? Was it supposed to be like that? Was it intended to be like that? Yes. RL10s are supposed to be insanely deep throttleable. You can really you can do basically with an RL10 what you can do with a rocket engine in KSP. They are ridiculously throttleable, like down to 10%. The reason why is what drives it is physics. Hydrogen is getting heated up by the nozzle. You deliver less hydrogen to the cooling channels on the nozzle. Less hydrogen gets heated up. The rocket engine slows down. it throttles down. You meter it with the valves, which is really, really cool. RL-10s were originally designed to be a lunar lander engine. Believe it or not, that's what their first use was. They were designed as a prototype engine for landing on the moon. Hence, deep throttle ability was designed into it. Now, the funny thing is that the the RL-10 found its way onto the Centaur and ended up never getting used as a lunar lander engine because it's a disgustingly good upper stage engine. Very good for precise insertion because the RL-10 is so damn throttleable. Yep. Hydrogen is less dense. Why is the O2 tank so much bigger then? It's not. Physics, man. Yeah. So, I know what the next question is. Why the frick don't we just use this for everything? Well, there's a reason why the RL-10 has been flying as an upper stage engine for almost 60 years. So they kind of do. The second part about this is, so with expander cycles, you're literally, the engine's thrust is limited by how much surface area you can expose the hydrogen to. So there is a theoretical limit to how much thrust you could get out of one of these things. But the funny thing is that that's what makes Blue Origin, their BE7, the BE7, that's what makes that motor so insane. Blue Origin is working on an upper stage engine for New Glenn that's an expander cycle. Or no, that's BE3. BE7 is the lunar lander engine. The BE3 has the expander cycle, and they're looking to make 500 kilonewtons of thrust from an expander cycle, which is literally about as crazy as that. That's about like theoretical maximum there, which is really cool. Yeah, the BE3U. That's what it is, Core. Sorry. Yep. Where do you even go from the RL-10, though? BE3. BE3 makes 500 kilonewtons of thrust off of an expander cycle. Nuts, right? Unbelievable physics, dude. Yeah, pretty crazy. Oh, Erebors, you got me footage of the... Got the footage of that thing going? Let's see.
15 seconds.
All right, this is the L44. They did give us footage of it, which is actually pretty rad. Yeah, it's hydrolock, so that staging's gonna end up over here somewhere. Yeah, here we go. Watch this. It's on paper, Pacey. You can't, like physics, the math says you really can't go further than that. Yeah, see, there's the screw jack. Hey, there's their nozzle extension. And open up the valves. And boom goes the dynamo. Yeah, they didn't show it. Is that cool or what? New Shepard uses the BE3. Yep. Thanks for that, Airborse. I appreciate it. So, yeah, it looks like we're going to get something along the lines of that. So, insanely high specific impulse, but low thrust. RL-10s make 100 kilonewtons of thrust on a good day. It's not that, they're not that powerful. There are jet engines that are more powerful than an RL-10. But the RL-10 is pretty much the most efficient rocket engine that you can get. The only engines I think that are on par with its efficiency is maybe a shuttle engine, and that's about it. Sorry, I meant regarding their claim to be near the max. Honestly, you're really limited by the surface area of the motor, Pacey. Right? And what denotes the expansion? Like, so how much surface area on the nozzle are you getting at, right? And because there's only certain expansion ratios that you want, like certain geometry of the nozzle that you want, you're kind of limited in that regard. Like you can't just scale up a rocket engine. You can't just make it bigger. That doesn't work that way. So there are theoretical maximums. In fact, I'll be honest with you. I'm amazed that the BE3U is projected to make 500 kilonewtons with an expander cycle. That's absurd. That is an absurd amount of thrust for an expander cycle. If they can pull that one off, that's literally going to be one of the best upper stage engines ever devised. Ever. The only thing I can think of that would be better than that is a Nerva engine, which NASA is working on. Nice. And supposedly Blue is too, but I don't know how good that information is. What does Soyuz use for a second stage? Soyuz uses a Kerbal second stage, which has a, what is it, an RD-257? It's kerosene. It's not very efficient, but it packs a good punch because that's what kerosene does. That's why we use kerosene in first stages a lot. Saturn V, Atlas. You want to use kerosene for your first stage because kerosene has a lot of energy. It lets out a lot of energy really, really fast, but at the behest of efficiency, right? Hydrogen is super efficient, but it's not a very energetic burn. But you burn everything that you put into that nozzle. That's why rocket engines that use hydrogen, the flames coming out are clear. You can see right through them because there's not a lot of combustion byproducts from hydrogen. In fact, there's nothing. How does the RL-10 compare to a Raptor? So the RL-10, the RL-10 makes about, like, any particular variant of the RL-10 makes anywhere from like 400 to 460 seconds specific impulse at about 100 kilonewtons, give or take. Raptor makes 380 seconds specific impulse at 2200 kilonewtons. Raptor is not as efficient, but it's way more powerful. Way more powerful. But because it's using methalox, you're never going to get as efficient as hydrogen. The reason why is methane has that damn carbon. Methane is 4 hydrogens attached to that damn carbon node. That carbon node's a pain in the butt, but here's the thing. He said but. Here's the thing. With methane, you're going to get, it's a little more stable chemically than hydrogen is, and it doesn't leak as much as hydrogen. So you're getting almost as good as efficiency as hydrogen, but it's kind of a good all-around propellant. You're not getting all the efficiency of Hydrolox. You're close, but you're simultaneously not getting all the energy that you get from kerosene, but you're close. It's kind of the best of both worlds there, which is why SpaceX is using it as why SpaceX uses it as their propellant, because it's a good all-around propellant. Nice t-shirt, eh? Yeah, I don't hate it, Adam. So Zerg, the RL-10 is more efficient than a Raptor engine, way more efficient, but the Raptor engine is way more powerful and almost as efficient. You're comparing upper stage engines to first stage engines, but also there's Raptor Vacuum, which, yeah, I mean, it's still less efficient than an RL-10. And methane doesn't coke the engines, right? It does a little bit, Pacey. You're going to get a little bit of coking because that damn carbon atom. Yeah. Hey, Ebsta. Top of the morning to you. Yeah, Hypersonic, what Aqualex said. Look at the space shuttle external tank. Look at how big the hydrogen tank is compared to the LOX tank. The B3U is open expander cycle, by the way. Yep. Yeah, it's open. It's an open cycle. This thing right here is a closed expander cycle. The RL-10 does not work like this, core. The RL-10 is an open expander cycle as well, if I'm remembering correctly. I mean, I did model one. You said coking. I heard copium. Cope and seethe, Methalox fans. You wish you were this efficient. I guess KSB messed me up with it, where I think the ratio is 1.1. No. KSP2 Hypersonic has methalox fuel ratios, so you have a lot more oxidizer than you do methane. Yeah. Once again, if we're going to talk chemistry here for a second, don't get me wrong, I'm not a chemist. Not even close. If I'm remembering correctly, chemists, I know there's chemists watching. Correct me on this because I know I'm not going to get it exactly right. With methane, the reason why you need to deliver more oxygen is because of that damn carbon molecule. Yeah, you need all the oxidizer to combine with all of the methane, and you need to deliver more oxidizer to get it to combine correctly, if I'm remembering that right. Could be wrong, though. Do rockets grab oxygen from the atmosphere when first launching and then switch to the internal reserve? No, Befuddled. Most rockets don't do that. There is one type of rocket that is working on doing that. The Sabre engine from Reaction Engines, but we haven't heard much from them lately. All about balancing the reaction equation. Yep, yep. You need more O2 because it reacts with 4 hydrogen and 1 carbon, not just 2 hydrogen. Therefore, more O2 is required. Yeah. Methane has more things attached to it chemically, so you need more oxygen to blow up more things. But because of that, you're never going to get as efficient of a burn as hydrogen, because sometimes you have leftovers. Because not everything kind of combines 1 to 1, right? It's simple math. 2O2 plus CH4 equals 2H2O plus CO2. Yep, yep. So most rocket engines use liquid oxygen on board for their oxidizer or nitrogen tetroxide. Yeah, the reason why is because trying to make some type of system that uses atmosphere that's like a naturally aspirated rocket engine, and then switching that in flight to a liquid oxygen rocket engine is insanely difficult. The ends don't outweigh the means, or the means don't. It's too hard to do. It's easier to just make the rocket engine work off one oxidizer, and that's it. Believe me, reaction engines has been trying to figure this out for years. Yeah, interesting, huh? They've been trying to figure it out for a long time, and they're still working at it, but ends don't justify the means. Yeah, adversity, that's what I was trying to say. My brain went potato for a second there. Yeah, befuddled. There are people that are working on it. It is possible. So, yeah, here, I'll show you a Sabre engine real quick. Dude, this is some sci-fi stuff, for real. So, the Sabre engine is nuts. Here, this render is from the European Space Agency, but yeah, here, check this out. So, here's the Sabre engine. It's half jet, half rocket engine. They proved the heat exchanger, though. They turned the afterburner exhaust into snow. Yeah, Aqualex, you're right. I'm getting to that. Yeah. So, what the Sabre engine does is obviously rocket engine. That's the easy part. We know what that does, right? And then you have your pumps for hydrogen and oxygen, right? For when you go into closed cycle mode, right? But you also have it's also a jet engine. It's a jet engine that uses liquid hydrogen as its liquid fuel. Now, once again, we were just talking about delivering oxidizer versus hydrogen. Hydrogen is easy to deliver, but when you're up at high altitudes, right, you need a lot of oxygen. You need to deliver a lot of O2 to maintain that fuel, the fuel stoichiometry, right? You need to have we were just talking with the RL10 about the right amount of fuel, right? And now, don't get me wrong, the oxygen, you don't need as much as you do the hydrogen, you know, right? Because looking at the turbo pumps, right? It needs to move the hydrogen quicker. Well, you need the same proportionally, but that has to do with fuel density and stuff. So just bear with me here. Long story short, what a Sabre engine does, right, is when it's in air breathing mode, it has a heat exchanger. There is a radiator, like kind of similar to a radiator in a car. Actually, it's more akin to an intercooler in a turbocharged car. It's an intercooler right here. But the intercooler isn't using ambient air, right? Like an intercooler would on a car, like a front mount intercooler. You know, right? You're using incoming atmospheric air to cool the charged exhaust or the charged boost from the turbocharger, because compressing gas creates a lot of heat, and you don't want cold air, you don't want hot air going into the engine, right? You want cooler air going into the engine, because if it's cooler, you can get more of it in there. And if you get more of it in there, you get more fuel. Now, that is what that does right there. But here's the thing. You don't want to use your incoming oxygen to cool itself. That doesn't make any sense. It's a jet engine. So you want to use the incoming air for combustion, right? For the jet engine. So what this thing does, what a Sabre engine actually does, is it has a liquid to air intercooler, all right? What does that mean? So you want to see some crazy physics here? This is where this gets a little insane. This thing right here has liquid helium being pumped through it. Liquid helium. The liquid helium or the gaseous, the helium tanks that are inside of this engine, right? Or that would be inside of a vehicle that has this engine on it, right? They have the helium tanks, and they use the hydrogen tank on said vehicle to cool the helium and liquefy it. And then the liquid helium goes through here, and the air coming in at high speed, which is usually hot because it's getting compressed from the conic intake. The air in here, it's highly compressed air, but it flows through the heat exchanger, and the incoming air ends up heating up the helium, right? And that in turn cools down your air. It cools down your oxidizer so you can get more oxidizer in to make the rocket engine work. And then that gaseous helium goes back. There's a pump on the rocket that pumps the helium back, and the helium goes through a heat exchanger in the hydrogen tank, and it turns it back into liquid, and it keeps the cycle going. As long as you have liquid hydrogen, your helium heat exchanger is going to work. It's a closed loop heat exchanger, which is really, 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 really smart. That's really cool. Very difficult, though. So the Sabre engine is still kind of under construction. The thing is, and this is what Oculus was talking about in chat, because you jump the gun as always. No, I'm just kidding. The pre-cooler works. This is a pre-cooler right here. It works. It works. They proved that the heat exchanger, the helium or the closed loop helium pre-cooler works. So that's the difficult part. So that means that it's a super air conditioner. Yep, basically, it's an air conditioner that's attached to the front of a jet engine. But it's not like the air conditioner that you put in your window or the central air conditioning system in your house. This thing needs to move insane amounts of air. So it's a little bit different than that. Liquid helium, sheesh, how much colder is that compared to LOX rocket fuel? Well, Maverick, here's the thing. Hydrogen and helium are distant cousins, but they are kind of similar. They're distant cousins. If you look at them on the periodic table, hydrogen and helium are both at the top. Well, hydrogen would be over here for you guys. Helium would be over here. The thing about it, the interesting thing about it is that helium is inert. Hydrogen is not. Hydrogen is super reactive. Hydrogen likes to make things blow up. Hydrogen likes to blow up. Helium is not, interestingly enough. Because they're kind of similar, and they have similar mass, right? Liquid hydrogen hydrogen exists as a liquid around the same temperatures as helium. So that's why it works. That's why you can turn that helium back into liquid. If you were using methane, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. Methane isn't cold enough to liquefy helium. Crazy, right? Isn't helium super rare? Why not use any other noble gas that's less rare? Seems like a design flaw to you. Okay. What else are we going to use here? We're going to use neon. Neon's a lot more complicated. That's a lot more stuff in there. See all that? See all that extra stuff? Also, this is really freaking cool, by the way. You don't want to use a reactive gas. It has to be a noble gas. It has to be inert, or else it'll break the Sabre engine. The reason, once again, look, see, helium is not very complicated. Not a complicated atom, I guess. It's not complicated. Hydrogen is about as simple. It's the basic of the basic elements. Long story short, because helium and hydrogen are distant cousins, right? See, hydrogen is 1, helium is 2. The reason, because they're distant cousins, they have their phase changes are the temperatures at which they change phase is similar. That's why this works. If you tried to use neon or argon or krypton or xenon, radon, I would not use radon. That would be very bad. If you tried to do that, you wouldn't be able to exchange the heat correctly. You have to use helium, and it's on a closed loop system, so your helium doesn't go anywhere. Argon is an abundant inert gas, however, it is heavier. Yeah, look at all that. That's complicated, man. This is actually really freaking cool. Just on a side note, that's really neat. Just burn it. You can't burn helium. It's non-reactive. What is radon? It's a radioactive gas, basically. Yeah, radon is radioactive. Maybe you can't burn helium. The turbo sneeze. It's a blow-off valve, Baron. Sorry. We're talking about intercoolers, man, right? Yeah, radon is not good for you. See this? This kills the human. I mean, there are a lot of things on here that our body does not like. Sounds like a skill issue. Okay. This is actually super cool. Dragon, you seeing this? This is really interesting for a chemistry plebeian like me. This is really neat. Yep. I'm currently working as a radon inspector if anyone has questions. Yeah, Strider, doesn't radon like to pool in people's basements? Yeah. Yeah, that's not good for you. This is actually super neat. What's the most complicated atom? Okay, so these are arranged by atomic mass. They're arranged by atomic mass. Okay, so basically, elements that have more mass are down here. They have a higher number, for the most part. Your atomic mass is up there. Hydrogen is 1. That's this naming convention here. It's neat, however, that is not what electron orbits look like. Yeah. Nice repairing. It's inaccurate if you're trying to picture how an atom actually looks like. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a simplified model. It's still cool, though. It kind of drives home the point how complicated some of these are. Yeah, Lawrencium. That would be the... I think that's the most complicated. Look at all that. It's a gas, but so it will fill the rest of the space of its volume, but generally highest on lowest levels. Yeah, Strider. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, not good for you. That's neat. Beryllium. It's coated with beryllium and boron. Yep. Electrons, protons, and neutrons. Yep. Building blocks for the universe right there. That's really neat. 119 is the biggest theorized. I'm more a fan of element 115, Moscovium. Element 115. This is actually super neat. Atomic numbers 5, 44, 49, and 16 is cool. 5, 44, 49, and 16. Brooks? Yeah, yeah, I got you. Bruins. Yep. Okay. Oh boy. That's what I spent my time in 10th grade chemistry doing, making words out of the elements. Probably should have been paying attention more. Bruins.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
His eyes up, 66 months. Are you creating a new element? Yep. Bruh. Yeah, dude, this is cool, man. So, yeah, because hydrogen and helium are kind of distant cousins, they're similar, but they're not exactly the same. If they were the same, they'd be the same thing. Because helium is non-reactive, it's noble gas, right? And hydrogen super reactive.
Discovery,
you can use helium. You can use hydrogen to cool helium. Interesting, right? Can you spell SpaceX from it? So, I don't think there's an element that's just P, but we have S, P, A. What's C, E? I don't think there's a C, E. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Cerium. Okay. Space. But I don't think there's element X either. There's xenon, but that would be SpaceXy. SpaceXy. There should be. That sounds cool. Yeah. Where is copium? Carbon, oxygen. PI should be in here somewhere. Element X. Yep. Spell copium. I'm sure we'd see, like, dude, you could do that all day. Anyway, so yeah, Sabre engines do exist, Befuddled. Yeah. It's just kind of a prototype technology that they're working on right now. Reaction Engines is working on it. Anyway, let's get back to the AMA. So it looks like we got an expander cycle engine there. On to business. Yesterday morning, Shayna Markham, our design director, did our second AMA and gave some very detailed answers to some challenging questions. And she did a much better job than I of pulling those questions from different sources, including this forum. We posted the audio from that AMA. We'll check that out in a second. For those who missed it, this is definitely worth a listen. Lots of amazing creations in this week's community highlight. Whoa, nice. While only a few images make the cut every week, be sure to check out the KSP2 Best of Discord for amazing community creations. I've really been enjoying how much we've all been channeling our Starship excitement into the game. Congratulations to SpaceX on flying Starship as far as they did and breaking a whole lot of records. And one parked car in the process. Nice. Finally, here's the next weekly challenge, and the challenge is to make a dragon. No, not the spacecraft, a literal dragon. Now get out there and creatively misuse those procedural wings. Okay. That's Nate's update there. Good to see that Nate is back and well rested. All right. Now, let's get into the AMA. I'm going to just go in here like this and...
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I am joined today with Shayna. Now that...
All right, cool. Let's get into the AMA here.
That we're made through our technical difficulties.
That's Howdy. Michael.
If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Shayna, I don't know if many of the community has seen you yet.
Yeah. Hi, my name's Shayna Markham. I am the design director here at Intercept. I also serve as the lead designer for Kerbal Space Program 2. I I've been in the industry for, I have to gauge this by how old my cat is. It'll be 18 years this year. Run through a variety of companies, including Treyarch, Gas Powered Games, and Wargaming. Came here to Kerbal about 3 years ago. I get to gauge that by how old my daughter is. And I'm really excited to be able to sit here and talk to y'all today and answer some questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us and taking time out of your busy schedule to be here today. And with no further ado here, I'll kind of jump into some of the questions.
Sure.
Our first one here is from the Discord user Enjoyer. What is a design director?
It's a great question. So a design director is somebody who is responsible for the standards and practices and excellence of a particular discipline. So in my case, I would be the person overseeing all designers over here at Intercept. I'm also responsible for making sure that the designers here have the room to learn and grow and explore their passions and become better game designers every day.
Awesome. We definitely see that every day, and I hope the community sees it as well. Our next one here is from user Epic on the Discord. What has been your favorite thing to work on so far?
Oh, what is my favorite thing to work on so far? I think the VAB has been one of my favorite pieces. That builder covers really a whole lot of functionality, and when you look at it and just kind of like spend day by day just trying to go through your basic builds, there's a lot of like cool moments in there where you can find things that help new players understand how to build and fly and like what's available to them. And at the same time, that kind of exploring that kind of design space gives the opportunity for more expert players to kind of shortcut and get to the things that they care about faster. And so that's one of those moments of design where you get like a win-win on both ends, and it makes me feel really cool.
Well, that's awesome. I definitely can see that. Jumping to the next one here, we have from that one guy on the Discord. What is the planet you are most proud of that we have not seen?
Oh,
That we haven't seen.
I think it is, for me, it's Glumo, which is it's a Saturn-like planet in another star system.
Cool.
I'm a sucker for rings, and there are some really beautiful like shots that we had as we've been exploring that place that just it feels so nice to be there.
Sounds like I need to join some of these play tests and actually test some of this stuff out too myself here. Well, our next one here is from Little 908. This is from the forums.
Okay.
What is your favorite celestial body in Kerbal?
That one's easy. It's Eve. It's beautiful. It's haunting, and also once you're there, you're never going back.
Solid choice and reasoning. Cool. Our next one here is from user Starhawk on the forum. What has been the process of bringing a solid gameplay foundation, player progression, in KSP2?
Good
Sure.
question.
So when we're talking about player progression, in the end, you're looking for really like for any sort of game, you're trying to think about like what are things that I want you to do, and then how does progression help give you both implicit and explicit goals in order to be able to perform that. So when you look at something like science or resources, those tend to be a bit implicit in what they're doing. They're just like, hey, I do want to progress along this tree, but I got a lot of ways in order to do this, and no one's directly telling you like, hey, go perform experiments here, guys. And so it's kind of an implicit thing, and that's, I think, like out of those two kinds of systems, the one that's a better fit for Kerbal and this particular player base that does like to experiment and explore and kind of just see what's going on. At the same time, explicit goals not only give like immediate things for folks, they're also really great for newer players who are just trying to figure out, what is this game about? What can I do? It also helps, I think, more mid-range players if your explicit goals allow you to explore things that are a little off of the main path, to say like, hey, these are some other things for you to consider as well. which is also a really great goal for Kerbal, because this is a game that, while we say it's about rocketry, you do so many things in this game.
Definitely, yeah, that is true. Our next one here comes from K-Create on the Discord. What's the team's approach to converging on a design choice? I'm sure not everybody on the team agrees to how every system/mechanic is going to work.
question.
How does the team eventually reach a point that everyone is happy with?
This question is really like, how does designer design? When I go mentor others, this is usually the question that comes up, is like, how do I navigate a conflict? How do we come to an agreement across multiple people who have different opinions about, like, what are you trying to do? And really, when it comes to design, like those differences are all subjective, and so it's like you and I could come at a particular problem with different ideas, and they can both be valid. And so where we begin is that designers develop an agreement on the basics, on like, what is the game we're making? Who are we making this game for? And that kind of becomes the common ground for everybody to advocate for particular solutions. The other part of this, I'm a fan of improv. I took a course for it. There's two big lessons that come out of that, which is yes and, which is you're not necessarily here to negate somebody else's opinion. You're there to be able to build something, and hopefully the two of you get to build something better than either one of you could have done alone. And the other one is make the other guy look good. And again, it's those two pieces kind of help build trust across the design team and build that openness, and also kind of build that, it's like, I'm not here with my solution and you're here with your solution. It's we're both working together to find out what's the best path for the game we're making and for the players that we have.
Definitely, we see that every day with the team. It's great to hear it. Our next one here comes from user Leroy Jenkins from the forums.
All right, chums, let's do this.
How do you and the team learn about and imitate real-world rocket and spacecraft systems to ensure the realism of the game?
As a WoW player, good name, but also like, there's a lot to this. So we have a handful of subject matter experts. There's Dr. Yuri Shumlock over at the University of Washington. He's the person that we tend to talk to when it comes to propulsion systems. We also have a handful of subject matter experts, particularly when it comes to colonies and celestial bodies. So we do have outside sources that we do consult. Internally, like we're reading white papers, and we have our own subject matter experts in-house as well. When I initially joined the project, I knew Nate Simpson as that guy who had a metallic hydrogen white paper taped on his wall. And I was like, oh, this is what I've come into. But, on top of that, there's Shalma, who has a background in astrophysics. Even on the design team, we have Chris Adderley, who has a background in aerospace. And so this game's kind of a rare intersection opportunity where you're not necessarily dealing with game designers all the time. You're dealing with game designers and people who are really passionate about aerospace, and you all get to kind of like jam together and learn off of each other.
Definitely unique. I've definitely learned a lot from everybody here. Our next one here comes from Brad Taniguchi on the Discord.
Mm-hmm.
What was the most difficult decision thus far with designing the game? Alternatively, what was the easiest?
That's a good question.
So I can answer both of these. The most difficult one, I think, was establishing the roadmap. So we started from an endpoint. We're like, here's the game as a whole. But when you go into early access, it's not like, oh, I'm going to put all of these things, at like 50% at once. You're having to think about like, how do you build your foundation, and then for like each step, how do you continue to build the game in such a way that it's cohesive and enjoyable? And that took us months to sort out. Mm-hmm. And you still like have moments where you're like, are you really sure you want to put this one into this part of the roadmap? Can we move it sooner? Do you want to move it later? Like, there's always a little bit of wiggle that's going on. But like, bar none, like trying to think about how to take this absolute behemoth of a game and kind of like parse it out so that every time that we release something, players go, yeah, this is rad and I love where you're going. Super, super complicated to do. Easiest one.
This isn't live.
This was actually
last Friday, Pop.
This is a super fiddly fine-tune answer. It's sorting parts by type as a default within the VAB. When we initially started, we sorted by size by default, but it was still causing some difficulty for people to figure out, like, well, where is this specific thing that I happen to be looking for? And then once we got sorting by type in, and we were doing more build playtests in-house, basically the art team rose up as one voice and said, can you just make that the default? And it's like, yeah, sure, let's go.
Fair enough. Our next one here is from Vicky211 on the Discord. What is the most important change in KSP2 from KSP1 that you feel is overlooked by the community?
Ugh. I don't know if it's overlooked as much as it's small. And it's all the little pieces that lead to approachability, that lead to more people coming in and exploring. It's moving away from opaqueness, where it's just like, oh, I hope you remembered this one fiddly piece over here, or else your day is ruined. Like, you want players to come in, try, fail, learn, try again, probably fail again, but keep that loop going. And that doesn't happen if your game doesn't give players the information and the guidance that they need in order to make those better decisions. And that's a real tough thing to do when you're also dealing with a complicated topic, which is rocketry and orbital dynamics and aerospace. And so, like, you don't want to run away and make that part any easier. So you've got to find a way how to, like, guide players into making, good decisions and, the game session length that they've got.
Definitely. I know I fail enough times till I figure it out, so that's good. Our next one here is from user Vortigaunt on the Discord. Most players don't know how to do reentry and land precisely. How will you teach players to land precisely near colony to deliver resources there? Or will we get instruments to predict landing sites for delivery path?
Interesting.
There's a lot of stuff going on in there. First off, the tutorial suite that we do have in place is basically the beginning of that suite. Something that we look at for every release is just like, what more can we add in here? And that includes things like reentry, and that's not only like, atmospheric reentry where you get to happily use parachutes as your answer, but also, like, hey, how do you land on the mun, guys? That's something that is, I think, old hat for a lot of us, but is something new for people to figure out, particularly like, what numbers do I happen to be looking for whenever I'm doing this? Precision landing, I think, is another one of those, and certainly when colonies appear, that skill becomes immensely useful. We have our writer, Jim Peck, did a handful of knowledge shares across the team, and one of the ones he did was precision landing, and it really was like, we recorded that as like, oh, here's like this bevy of information to think about, because he's a very thorough thinker and a very thorough explainer as well. And so when we get into something like precision landing, we've got the wealth of information internally to be able to, like, distill that and hopefully teach that to the community.
Interesting.
He definitely has a lot of knowledge. He's taught us a few things. Our next one here is from user the Tunnel from the forums.
Yeah.
How long does it take to design a real world technology for Kerbal technology and still be realistic? I love all that you do. The game looks amazing.
Man, it really depends. It depends on the part. It depends on the complexity of the part. It depends on, like, any sort of historical knowledge that you happen to have. I know that there are some parts right now that have a pretty fast turnaround that we're working on. But whenever you're working on something like an engine, or you're going to do, like, here's a suite of parts, you really do have to, like, take your time thinking, like, going through what's the reality of this, and then going, well, like, okay, so that's the reality of this. What gameplay considerations do I want somebody to have when they're using these parts? What am I enabling them to do? What am I challenging them to do? And can I do that in a way to where they quickly understand what's going on and what they're being expected to do in order to use this thing? And then from there we go into, like, well, okay, gameplay wise, this makes sense. We know the user story surrounding using this. We know that this is a part that is relevant and that we want to bring in, and then we'll start doing additional research. We'll do white boxes. We'll hash out like, do we need to do a new part module in order to account for this new functionality? Do we get to use existing part modules? So the process really changes, but usually like the more a thing does, the more complicated more complicated and the longer it takes.
Got it. Fair. Our next one here is from user I don't know how to forum from the forums.
Fantastic.
What are your goals with regards to balance for these new technologies? The intent for late game parts to essentially replace early parts, or for lower tech solutions to still be viable and necessary in the late game?
That's an excellent question. So I think some of this is going to have like a mode-based answer for this. When you're looking at raw power, I mean, eventually, and certainly our hope as people is that some technologies will beat others out, like cars will beat out horses. So when you're looking at just like raw numbers, you will see pretty much like straight replacements for things. But when you're looking at something like exploration, where suddenly, in order to build somewhere, you need to have the resources to be able to build the thing that you're looking for. That gives us an additional lever to make those older technologies still relevant, because perhaps those resources are more prevalent where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Our next one here is from user, I want to say Cyclic, from the Discord. Hi, Shayna. I was wondering how the KSP team balances the stats and parts. KSP has many parts that aren't exact recreations of real rocket parts or future technologies that don't exist yet. Determining what stats like thrust, pulse should be sounds like a lot more involved than looking it up on Google. Could you give an overview of the process the team uses to determine the stats for, say, a metallic hydrogen engine?
Sure. And hi, Cyclic. So whenever we look at we're going to introduce new parts, we'll group parts into certain stories and goals. And that helps us set guidelines for overall behaviors, and that basically like sets our basics. So for example, you could look at like I'm gonna deviate from metallic hydrogen because there's a lot more variables involved in there. But I'll talk about like command parts. So like a pod versus a lander versus a cupola, and it's like those three types of parts all have distinct stories that they have. They're used in particular goals. And so once you have an agreement on like these are the types of parts and these are the goals that these types of parts should have, you get to start looking at like, well, these are the variables that we can tweak. And then you can start to set guidelines for this. So you can say like, well, okay, maybe command pods have a better heat tolerance than landers. Maybe landers have more capacity for EC and monoprop, because they're usually detached from a rocket at some point, and so they need that extra storage. And so you get those guidelines in place, and then you start to derive formulas from it to be able to consistently apply that. And then once you've got all that together, you start reviewing your data against your known factors. And so like going back into engines, you may go like, well, okay, how long does it take you to be able to perform this mission? Or, can this engine actually handle this particular flight profile? How heavy is this? Does it have enough thrust to where, the fuel that it needs is going to be, like, can anything even lift off of the ground? Or, you could say like, well, no, it doesn't have to do that, but the intent of this is to be built at an orbital colony, and so the profiles around building this thing in the first place are wildly different. It's a crazy number of variables, particularly for the engine sheet. Chris Adderley, I think, has like 3 or so engine balance sheets that you look at, and you just keep kind of like you're sort of like best fit guessing, but at the same time, particularly when you're talking about near future technologies or things that don't necessarily have like an analog in like a true analog in reality, you do get to like fudge a little to basically go like, well, what's the player's goal for using this thing?
Got it. It's a lot. All right. we have one from a user from the Discord here, the cat. Mm-hmm. Are new planets scale more scientifically accurate, or have you kept the size for gameplay reasons.
That is very strictly, we kept the 6 scale size for gameplay reasons.
Whoops. Oh, balls. It did the quote thing. Give me 1 second, guys. I'll get us back up there. Yeah.
From opaqueness, where it's just like, oh, I hope you remembered this one fiddly piece over here, and the longer it takes.
Got it. Fair. Our next one here is from user I don't know how to forum from the forum.
Once you've got all that together, you start
All right, let me just back it up.
guidelines for this. So you can say like, well, okay, maybe command pods have a better heat tolerance than landers. Maybe landers have more capacity for EC a monoprop because they're usually detached from a rocket
sure
at
this
some
bounced
point, and so they need that extra storage. And so you
Another
get
question from
those
this guy.
guidelines in place, and then you start to derive formulas from it to be able to consistently apply that. And then once you've got all that together, you start reviewing your data against your known factors. And so, like, going back into
I'm just finding
engines,
my
you may
spot.
go like, well, okay, how long does it take you to be able to perform this mission? Or, you know, can this engine actually handle this particular flight profile? How heavy is this? You know, does it have enough thrust to where, you know, the fuel that it needs is going to be, you know, like, can anything even lift off of the ground? Or, you know, you could say like, well, no, it doesn't have to do that, but the intent of this is to be built at an orbital colony, and so the profiles around building this thing in the first place are wildly different. It's a crazy number of variables, particularly for the engine sheet. Chris Adderley, I think, has like 3 or so engine balance sheets
Yes,
that you look at, and you just keep kind of like you're sort of like best fit guessing, but at the same time, particularly when you're talking about near future technologies or things that don't necessarily have like an analog in like a true analog in reality, you do get to like fudge a little to basically go like, well, what's the player's goal for using this thing?
Got it. It's a lot. All right.
All right,
We have
here
we
we
have
go.
one from
Caught up again.
from a user from the Discord here. The cat.
Mhm.
Are new planets scale more scientifically accurate, or have you kept the 6 size for gameplay reasons?
That is very strictly, we kept the 6 scale size for gameplay reasons. Like, there's not too much to really get into this. It's just like, if you do blow up the size, and I think you do vastly change the experience between the 2 games, and that's a very hard square to circle for a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Our next one here is from a user on the Reddit, the Homeless Man 0.
Okay.
Will there be any additional things or challenges on planets like wildlife, exploring cave systems, weather, etc.?
Man, there's like all of those examples there, certainly things that we've talked about. And if we talk about wildlife, then like Paul Zimmer will barge into this room and tell me like, you need to listen to me and read this document right now. But the things that are happening immediately is going to be science mode. Science mode is one of those first times where it's like, all right, there's a design kind of terminology thing in place where there's a toy, which is basically like, here's a bunch of things that you can do. And when you have a game, when it's like, here's a bunch of things you can do and here's a goal. So science mode is the first time where we get to like take this toy into a game. And there's like the implicit drivers of like, I need to progress through a tech tree, I need to perform experiments, I need to fly missions to distant places in order to get all of that. But it's also the first time that we're introducing missions, and unlike KSP1, we're looking at doing bespoke missions, and so we're taking a look at like, what's really cool about the celestial body, what's really cool about this particular type of flight profile, or like what's something that we do in reality that we can spark curiosity about in KSP2, and you can build
Good call.
missions that kind of guide players into seeing like, this is not only what you can do within the game, but it's also these are things that we're grappling with as humans.
Got it. Our next one here
Good
is
call.
a user from the Discord. I want bread. Will there be incentive to go to other planets in the future, like special resources or things like the Monarch?
Short answer, yes. And I think it's just an extension of it's an extension of the previous question. So, like I said, science is about performing experiments at locations. Exploration is when resources come in. And then, things like the Monarch are strange locations, right? Surely we'll do something with them.
Our next one here is a user from the Discord, Christoph. Will previous science parts from KSP1 be in KSP2?
Parts will be different between the two games. This is one of the things that we explored as we were going through, what are our plans for science mode, what was working, what can be improved, what kind of stories do we want to tell across science parts. And so in this case, the design team really hit on making sure that science parts are kind of focused on their own particular building and flying and usage challenges. And so you'll see less, let me put a thermometer radially on my command pod and just so I'm able to perform this experiment. It's more like, I've got this weird bulbous thing that performs an experiment, and I got to figure out how to build a rocket around this.
I like that.
We wanted to make sure every science there are some science parts where this is an easier question of how do I build and fly around this, but there are some that are pretty out there. But in the end,
It's good to know, Joey.
the common thread across science is that these experiments have they have a common core in reality. They relate to experiments and information that we care about in learning about just what is going on with another planet, what are its challenges, what are its uses.
Got it. On here we have one from the forums user Astro Guy. How will the resources be distributed across so many planets in order to give the player a reason to explore every world? If resources aren't the catalyst for exploration, how else do you plan on motivating exploration?
So I think there's a belief that, there's when you look at okay, I need resources and I need players to go and explore every planet as a result of that. There's a very easy answer that you hit on where you're like, well, okay, every planet needs a different resource, right? And that's yes, that's an answer. But it kind of gates players into they must do this or else they will not proceed, and that's certainly not a thing we want to do. We don't want to be prescriptive to the player and tell you hey, no matter what, you got to go to every single place even if you don't like it. So resources are not every planet has its own particular resource. It's also not true to reality either. Instead, we're looking at what sort of resources happen to sit on this planet and how are they useful to your program. And that becomes very relevant when you start dealing with exploration mode plus colonies, where you're able to build at different locations. And so you may choose to build a mining colony at one place because you're I don't want to build here because it's really obnoxious to fly from here, but it has a resource that I really need. And so you may build a terrestrial mining colony that schleps its resources up to an orbital colony, and that's where you're doing your real building and flying business. But again, we're talking about resources. There are still other systems in place to be able to guide players into where they want to go. And for the science release, it is explicitly performing experiments at locations and additionally performing missions that will take you to these places.
That brings me joy. Next one here from Discord user CVUSMO. I can't pronounce that. Sorry, I don't know if that's the acronym.
I know that guy.
With resource management, are the resources we gather raw materials that need to be converted into usable resources? Will we need to build a refinery system?
So short answer is yes, you're going to gather raw resources and then you're going to refine them into what you need. Chris Adderley had a lot of fun making this production chain graph. It's
Oh, damn.
I am hoping we as we get to do that release, that maybe we get to release that particular chart, because it's very helpful in kind of piecing together like how does everything flow into everything.
Space
Definitely to see about doing that. Our next one here is from a user from the Discord, Tycho. When it comes to resource systems, how many resources do you eventually decide to settle on, or are they still working on settling on? Should we expect something like one unique resource per celestial body?
Answered this a little bit previously, but to give a little more of a specific number, I think we're sitting on like 14 or 15 particular resources that can be found towards the universe, and it really is like the focus tends to be more on like what does a celestial body have to offer in terms of propulsion, but there's also some other pieces there for like wanting to build specific like non-engine or non-fuel parts. So the same resource can be present in multiple locations, but the prevalence of it or the proximity to your existing infrastructure are big factors into choosing like where are you building and where are you gathering.
It's like a lot of exploration to be had.
You've not.
Our next one here is from a user on the Discord, Arthur Snow. In the previous AMA, it got said that colonies will be built using resources, but the resource gathering update comes after the colonies one. How will that work?
Yeah, this is one of those edge case moments where, remember when we talked about like what's one of the most difficult decisions you had to make, and it's about this roadmap. This is one of those edge case moments that appeared as we were breaking out features on the roadmap. So exploration does have to wrestle with resources. Sandbox and science mode will not have to do that. And that's kind of the short piece to it. We wanted to make sure that exploration was about that kind of that additional piece. But yeah, that
Totally fair. Let's look forward to. Our next one here is from Reddit user Master of Rodentia. Will there be an equivalent to the mobile processing unit in science mode? Why or why not?
The answer here is no. We want to focus on the core experience of science. So what's this core gameplay loop of like, I need to fly a mission in order to earn science. So I need to have experiments on hand, and I need to go to a location, and then I either need to transmit or recover those reports in order to score science. And so that's like the basic loop of it. And because we're not like one-to-one cribbing off of KSP1 in this case, we want to make sure that the core loop is solid before we start adding parts that happen to break that loop.
That's totally fair. Next one here is from a user on the Discord, Calm. At the moment in KSP2 and KSP1, activating time warp halts all craft rotation. Was there any consideration given to making rotation persist through time warp? Is this something that we'll see in a future update?
Yeah, and I fully understand that time warp under Acceleration's current implementation makes long distance missions still pretty difficult to do. This one is something that we tend to consistently talk about. So I can't say when, but I can say, hey, we're talking about it.
Talking about it. Next one here is from user on the Discord.
Persistent rotation.
Booyahs? Sorry. Will we get more clues or backstory to the Kerbals, the Kraken, or Easter eggs around the Kerbaler system?
Absolutely. Kerbal is a very interesting bit of lore building where I liken it to like you would see something from a FromSoft game, where it's not like I'm going to sit here and have a dialogue with you and tell you everything that's going on, but there's kind of this environmental storytelling. There's these moments where like if you're looking at parts, you can start to learn a little bit about like manufacturers and things that they care about, or like weird little pieces of history that occur.
That's cool.
And I think that continues not only as we continue to add new parts and we start talking adding more celestial bodies, but also particularly when we start adding missions, particularly those that will get you looking at some of those Easter eggs.
Got it. Okay. Our next one here is from a user on the Discord, Link12313.
Oh, thank you.
Are there plans to add the claw and asteroids into KSP2?
Oh, thankfully.
Absolutely. That question is like, what release does that best slot into?
Got it. Our next one here is from a Discord user, Space Nerd 1235. Will the rover cockpit get new modules?
Nate Simpson, if you're listening to this right now, can we have more of these?
The asteroid grabber,
There's a
Belject.
parts artist on the team, Jonathan Cooper, who was kind of my touchstone as I was performing wheel tuning because he was super into making cars and rovers, and like he's made some really sweet things. He's made a Batmobile. I'm super into it.
Car people.
I want
We're everywhere.
I want more cars. I want more rovers.
Well, I hope Nate's listening. I'm sure he is somewhere
is
looking
cool.
at this going, oh, here now another
Be
meeting
like
about this
Shayna.
one. Our next one's from a forum user, No Kerbal Sky 08. Will there be slightly more advanced tutorials, like going to other planets? Because I'm pretty new. So far, the tutorials from KSP2 have been the easiest to understand.
I'm super glad that KSP2's tutorials are getting you up and flying, and absolutely, we want to continue building on these tutorials. Things that we know that we have in the wings, landing, interplanetary travel, like basic troubleshooting, like, hey, if your rocket's doing this, maybe you should be looking here instead. Planes docking, when colonies in Interstellar come up, they'll wind up having their own tutorial pieces as well, because there are things that we want to make sure that there are skills that we want to make sure that players feel comfortable about before they try to do it in their own game.
We love the animation on those too, right? Our next one's from user,
good question.
Discord user, Bacat. Are variants of engines and tanks like KSP1 planned?
This is another one of those topics that comes up pretty frequently. So there's always like the question of like, is a variant strong enough to be able to be made into its own part? And when that happens, we'll easily like break it out and say like, well, okay, this thing and its variant are now two parts. But there's still like I would like to do it just like a straight visual variant or something like that. So that topic still comes up. It likely wouldn't appear in the same form as it does in KSP1, but active talks.
Right. Our next one is from Reddit user Combat Pigeon 96.
Oh, another good question.
I straight face, no laughing.
Rad.
Will we get part size categories larger than 5mm parts? It's like 7.5M, and will the 1.875M parts be making from the Making History DLC make a return?
Not fully sure on the Making History DLC part of it, but on the other end of this about larger part categories, 100%. You'll likely see this appear when we start talking about Interstellar, because those engines are gigantic.
That is true. So this next one here is from Discord user L. Are there plans to increase the complexity, fidelity, variety of volumetric clouds in future updates?
That, alongside its performance, is a pretty frequent, I would say, weekly conversation. We are continuing to work on this.
Hear that? We love clouds here too. The next one is from a Discord user, King Martin. Will there be scaling like wings now for other parts?
So yes, there's we call these procedural parts, where it's not like you bring it in and it just comes in as one shape and that's all you care about. There's a little bit of tweaking to it. I think the next procedural part suite that we've got coming up is for radiators. So you may see that around the time that heat as a system makes its return. And this is one of those topics where as we look around and we see like, oh, there's a ton of parts that are like this. They're relatively like they're either like they're relatively samey, and we want to cut down on the sort of paralysis in the parts picker where you're looking at like 30 versions of this thing and going, what the hell is happening? But radiators and wings have that additional factor where that shape does a lot towards your aerodynamic profile and also towards like really what their job is supposed to be. And so that hits the really sweet spot. And like those are the kinds of parts where you go like 100% that has to be a procedural part.
Got it. Makes sense. The next one here is from user Jake Clovis on the Discord. Alternate atmospheric engines referring back to Eve. Will we have engines that can run on other atmospheric gases without a need for oxygen? Will we be able to collect gases from an
like
atmospheric atmosphere as part of the resource harvesting system.
So not using oxygen for I guess like your intake air is something that we would want to put through its paces for authenticity and gameplay value. So it's like, is this a thing that we do or could do? And then like what do we get out of this? Are we just making like one-off parts at this point, which tends to be something you want to avoid, or does it really kind of like open the field up towards like a whole new suite of parts and things for players to be able to explore? That's kind of like the beginning part of that kind of conversation. I'll write it down in my book to start thinking about. On the other part, though, there's a lot of good things in the atmosphere. There's a lot of things you want to learn about in the atmosphere. So I would be ready for Kerbal to start giving them some more attention.
Interesting.
Sounds fun to me. Next one here is from Discord user Gil. Do you plan on adding first-person EVA so that we can see the true scale of our Kraken inducing heaps of metal?
I had not thought about this. I am not going to promise this. That feels like that's an interesting addition. Hey, community, how y'all feel about that?
I guess we'll have to get some answers here. I'll check this out after we're done.
I think the better
next one here is from Discord
does
user
somebody not
Acid
want
Burn.
that?
Will colonies feature automation gameplay within the colony? So not the delivery route system. It can look something like 1. Resource extractor building mines a raw resource. 2. Resource refinery building makes a usable material out of it. 3. Assembly.
Okay. So yeah. There's a colony dev blog I did like a long time ago. There are still some like core pieces of that are important to keep in mind. The biggest one is that KSP2 is a game that is about building and flying cool rockets, and so that does mean that we don't want somebody to go, man, I want to go in and play KSP and I want to fly a mission to Duna, and then the first thing they have to do is spend 30 minutes doing overhead for their colonies. Instead of doing the thing that they intended to do. So like that's kind of the scaffolding for me saying like, yes, there's a fair amount of automation in place for colonies because we do not want colonies to be the thing that interrupts the core experience for the players. What can my colony do is a manual action. We want players to be able to decide like, what is the purpose of this particular colony? And it's similar to rockets, is by, snapping pieces together to have that sort of functionality. But otherwise, like once things are up and running, we try to skew to automation to let players focus on the part of the game that is really important to us, which is rockets.
Like a good time to me. Our next one here is from forum user Angelo Kerman. With interstellar technologies and travel on the roadmap, is relativity a thing for in KSP2? Will KSP2 handle time dilation effects while traveling at high velocities to the target star system?
Nate talks about this a few times in the pits, and it's always a terrifying discussion when it occurs. I've got no other comment.
Fair enough. Our next one here is from Discord user PlaySue. What new fuel types will be available throughout early access, and will different biomes on planets yield different fuel types?
So I think one of the first big propulsion types that's going to come in is nuclear based. I think there's I think it's split up into two particular types, but as it comes to like resources and biomes, for some reason Kerbin's not a hotbed for uranium. That's one of those pieces we do know about our resource mapping for exploration. And so for y'all who choose to play in exploration, that's probably about the first time you need to look outside of Kerbin in order to get the things you need.
Got it. All right. Next one here is from Discord user Nova Raptor.
Hey, there he
Considering
is.
recent events, will we be getting more parts based off Starship, such as grid fins? And what about telescopic landing legs like Falcon 9?
Good question, buddy.
First off, incredibly relevant question in more ways than one. So Tuesday, the internal design channel on Slack got lit up by Chris, given a couple of grid fin white boxes. He's like, hey, can you check out the shapes of these? Can you look at like the scale of these? And so like we're coming together as a group, going like, okay, mostly it's about like what's the size of this thing versus the size of the thing that it's attached to tends to be like the big thing that all of us were looking at. It's like, do we have the right number and right sizes of group fins in order to kind of meet player story needs? There's also like an additional piece in there where you're looking at it. Like I posed a question to Chris. I'm like, hey, I have absolutely no opinion about this either way, but why did you choose flat over curved? I may not have like a big opinion about this because I'm looking and going like, it's not necessarily like a big gameplay driver. But Chris comes in there with like, he's like, I have reasons for this. These are my opinions about it. And it's like that kind of like spicy design chat is what I love to see. So yeah, expect grid fins.
All right, we all love hearing
Cool.
from Chris on these things. It's always fun. This next one is from Discord user Cheetah Gamer 587. Is there a possibility that we'll see the paw part action windows returning?
Sure. So folks are familiar with
Please,
the part
please
action
bring
window,
that
which is
back.
the KSP
Please.
one. Basically, like let me click on a thing and let me see everything this part does. For KSP2, we unified this as the part action manager. The heart of that decision is in accessibility. So the part action window
Nice,
tends to
Noah.
be based on like, I need to be able to right click on this thing, which can be very difficult for certain people to do. It can be very difficult for even, people who do not have any sort of disability to be able to do, depending on like the size of what you're looking at versus what you're trying to click on. But absolutely, it's got its own clear faults and challenges as well. This is a frequent conversation topic with the UX group.
You can pause the game.
All right.
You don't have to
Our
worry
next one
about
here is
that.
from Discord user Tatao03. If you can tell us, will stuff be before crude in the tech tree? So are the first missions in science mode more likely going to be uncrewed or crude?
So I'll start by saying that there's like two cool points here. One, Kerbals are not people. Two, when we were hiring for a writer, this is exactly the question that I asked them. It's not necessarily not exactly this question, but mostly it was hey, if you look at the tech tree for Kerbal 1, crude pods appear before probes. Narratively, tell me why. And it was one of those like, I really want to see in the moment, do you know how to take like this kind of like weird kind of like realistically janky bit and kind of turn it into like, well, Kerbal lore. Why did Kerbals happen to do this?
That's a good one. I might not have been hired for that role. Our next one here is from Discord user Sam Retro. Very much looking forward to the prospect of colonies. Will adding our orbital colonies be similar to how we already make space stations, etc., or will it work differently?
It will work differently. Orbital colonies basically follow the same flow that terrestrial colonies do, and so you'll have the same tool set that you would for both of those cases.
Cool.
Right. Our next one is from Discord user Chair. Will there be procedural trusses?
Like in talking about procedural wings and eventually like radiators, I look at the truss section and I go, man, that's a lot of trusses. And so that's possibly a topic to bring up of like, do we want to collapse that part suite in some way? And if we do, then they would become procedural at that point.
Right. Our next one here is from Discord user KCreate.
Oh, good question.
Mm-hmm.
Will there be dedicated parts for building boats and submarines? Underwater bases? Question mark?
Underwater bases scares me a little. But we 100% want to support boats. And that's not only because, KSP1 has a lot of really sweet boat content, which was certainly not expected.
Boat content.
And we want to continue to allow that. But there's also some celestial bodies and other star systems that have some cool bodies of water of their own. And so maybe that topic comes up when we start talking about celestial bodies again.
Yeah, we're always listening to your feedback. And our last question here is from Discord user Sunny54 Games.
Oh, thanks, Rick.
Is the team at IG/PD happy with the current state of the game?
I mean, so yes, we got something that we're proud of out into the community. We no longer have to like hide in the shadows anymore. We get to have very clear conversations like the ones that we're having right now, where we get to come in here and say like, hey, this is from our knowledge, this is what we think this experience is. Does that jive with you? And particularly for an absolutely massive sandbox like Kerbal, a team can rarely hit all of those points, and so being able to have the community as now a touchstone for feedback is gigantic, and we wouldn't be able to do that unless we were out. So we learn a lot of lessons on our way to early access. The team's kind of realigning itself to be able to focus on features. We're in here for the long haul. We are just as excited to be able to execute on this roadmap as we are to see y'all play it, and that has to happen from a very healthy spot. Like we don't want to sit here and say like, oh, we're going to crunch forever until the end of time in order to push all of this out. We want to make sure that we're healthy and we're thinking through, and the things that we're delivering are fun and meaningful. And that's for like every major release that we do. Every time that we do a release, we have to ask that question of like, is the thing that we're about to put out, like a fun, meaningful, cohesive game?
I'd agree, and it's definitely a blast working with you here at Intercept.
Thank you.
I'm not just saying that because we're in the same room here and everyone's listening, but it is. Those are the whole team here. That was our last question, but I'd like to end this on. Do you have anything you'd like to say to the community? Any motivational words for the people out there?
Oh gosh.
I know I put you on the spot.
Like 100%. Thank you.
You're welcome.
As my particular background in game development, my community interactions tended to be towards competitive games. You can imagine what that kind of community is like. They're one of the big drivers for really being excited to work on this project.
Trying to say
is that this community is spectacular from top to bottom, from every individual piece that everybody does, from every unique story that you have, from every pizza that you decide to take to the mun. I mean, thank you, and I hope we do right by you.
Well, thank you, everyone. I won't bring up cereal today. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your Thursday, and thank you very much for tuning in, and be on the lookout for many more of these to come. We love being able to communicate with our community, and we're always listening to your feedback. So thank you.
Thanks,
thank
Mikey.
you, Shayna.
Thank you.
Thank you to the rest of the community team, because without Dakota, Virginia sitting here beside us, this would not be possible. So have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much.
Nice. I like these weekly AMAs. This is good. And the weekly dev update. That's cool, man. It's really nice to see content being released for the game that we play being released on a regular schedule. That's super nice, actually. Super nice. Anyway, that was the AMA with the design director. Shayna Markham is her name. She's, yeah, that's pretty cool. There's a lot of good questions in there. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, I mean, Nick, that's, like I said, I saw it from when I played the game before it came out. The game's rough. It's kind of basic right now, but so is KSP1. And KSP1 turned into one of the most legendary games around. This game is, the devs are looking to surpass that. They're looking to go to the next level, to get to where KSP1 was in terms of craziness, and then go beyond that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not speaking for them. That's directly from them, which is good. And here's the biggest one. They care. They care. You heard what Shayna said at the end of the AMA. They care. That's all I care about. If this was just a job, I'd be a little bit like, really? Okay. Sag. Like. Yeah, I met Shayna when we were in Amsterdam. Huge crit. Really cool. Yeah, Sam, for sure. It's this game's gonna go far, man. It's just gonna take a second. It's just gonna take a second. That's all. It's just gonna take a second. Okay. Did they add science to KSP2? QF7, it's coming. It's coming in sooner rather than later. For that's the devs' words. That's not mine. They don't need to have this amount of community interaction, but it's so refreshing and awesome that we're getting it. Sure. Absolutely. Re-entry heating is sooner rather than later, Ninja Tuna, from what I could tell from the AMAs. Yeah, I don't have the roadmap dates, guys. I wasn't high enough on the totem pole to get that. Wasn't high enough on the totem pole. You know, it would make a lot of sense if they were able to make grid fins procedural. Yeah, I suppose. On the Discord yesterday, Dakota said re-entry plus heat in general plays into a lot of other physics and gameplay systems and touches basically every single part in the game. Basically, it's complicated. Yeah, I guess it's raining out a little bit. Anyway, dudes, that was the AMA. That was good. That's good stuff. Cool. Procedural radiators. Neato. Burrito. Yep, definitely raining. So we got about 6 hours to burn. All right. Let's, what were we working on in KSP? I think I did the Eve Lander. Timberborn? Nah. Minecraft? No, I don't really feel like playing Minecraft. Did the launch go well yesterday? There was no launch yesterday, Sun Temple. Falcon Heavy moved to tonight, and so did Starlink. Starlink already moved to today. We saw Starlink 3.5 launch already. Have you seen the new Everyday Astronaut video? Some nice Starship footage in there. The 8K stuff? Yeah. Let's see. I kind of wanted to play KSP, dudes, but I'm not really into this challenge. I'm not gonna lie. I don't feel like building a dragon. I don't really feel like doing that. The only dragon I'd want to build is the capsule, and they explicitly say not to do that for the challenge. So I'm like, all right. What happened to Railroads Online? I took a break from Railroads Online. Is Update 8 coming out soon? Yeah. Just do non-challenge KSP? Oh. Well, let's see. You've been enjoying the new Hydroneer update. Potzer, for which game? Hey, Max Fox. Thank you for the raid. For Hydroneer, the factory game, that's the digging one. Ah. Hey, Vickers. Fox raid. What's going on? How you guys doing? Max Fox, thank you for the raid. I appreciate it. Probably been asked a million times, but do you play Space Engineers? I haven't, Zombie, it's something that I probably should be playing, but I never really got into. But I've played it in the past, if that makes sense. I know about Transport Fever, Biff, yeah. Let's see. Oh, I have Hearts of Iron installed. Any ideas for May the 4th? Oh. I'm not going to be here for May the 4th. Guys, next week I need Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off for reasons. Do the Constellation project with Triton? Yeah. More wedding showers? Can't say. It's something like that. May or may not be a bachelor party. I'm not saying where I'm going, though. Ugh, stop having a life. Yeah, I know. I suck. Yeah. Have you heard about NIMBY Rails? I know that game, Mokum, yeah. Your car broke on Sunday, Max Fox? Oh, no. Fix it. Figure it out. It's in Detroit, confirmed. That was last week. Double radiator fan failure? Check the fuse box. It's very unlikely that both fans would kick the bucket right at the same time. No. Truck stream? We could work on the truck after Falcon Heavy tonight, Vic, if you want. We want to wind down with some of that stuff. We gotta finish the bed, or we gotta finish the whole back of the truck. Do Apollo 11 in KSP. Yeah, I did that like a week ago, or not a week ago, like 3 weeks ago. Linus, I'm all set. So my mechanic didn't check the fuse box, getting ripped off. Classic. So, okay. So Max Fox, on a car, right? You have the radiator fans. And what do the radiator fans do? They pull air through the radiator to keep the engine cool, right? Pretty straightforward stuff. You have water going through a radiator, or coolant going through a radiator, and that coolant is hot because it came from the engine, and it goes through the aluminum radiator, right? And the fans pull air through, and the air meets the water flowing through your radiator, and it exchanges the heat, right? And it makes the coolant cool, and the coolant goes back into the motor through a water pump, cools the motor. The fans on there, okay? The fans are really simple, first of all. They have one moving part. You have the fan and the coil wrapped around a stator. An inner coil of the stator. It's very, very simple. It's just one part that rotates around another part like this. And the rotation part is attached to the fan, right? It has one moving part. Those things are very unlikely to break because it has one moving part. Now, the fans don't run all the time on your car. If you notice, when you turn the car on, they're not running right away. The reason why is because the fan is attached to what's called a relay. The fans are on a... Fans are on a relay system. Right? So, what does a relay system do? Well, relays on cars are a basic form of logic. Basically, it's carrying the power that it needs to run the fan, and then it's carrying power that's attached to a switch, right? So basically, when you have a remote switch, you switch on, it connects the circuit, the smaller circuit, right? And when the smaller circuit gets connected, it bridges the gap for the bigger circuit. Now, the switch in this particular case is a temperature sensor on your car. There's a temperature sensor that senses the engine getting hot, and when that sensor gets too hot, it sends out an electrical signal to the relay. The relay bridges the connection, and it turns the fan on. And then there's usually a fuse somewhere in the mix there. Fuses and relays are much more likely to break than a fan. The fan is the most expensive part to replace, though. I need to go outside and check this. Okay. Jeez. Hold on. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Max Fox, I'll be right back. It's raining sideways. It's raining sideways. Dude, that's loud. Like, I don't know what am I supposed to do with this? It's raining sideways. Yep. Jeez. All right. So, do I call the mechanic and ask him to check the fuse box? Check the fuse box and the relays. Yeah, absolutely. It's very cozy. You didn't leave anything outside, did you? No. Dynamite the underside of the roof, dude. I thought the insulation in the drop ceiling that I have up there would be good enough. Because they're currently ordering 2 fans at $400 a piece. Ask them if they checked. Did they check the fuses? Did they check the relays? Every car has this. It's like, you know, every car would have fuses and relays for the fans nowadays, just like every car has 4 wheels nowadays. So call them. Like, hey, I just thought of something. You know, what about the relays and the fuses? Did we check those to make sure those are good? Don't be a jerk about it because maybe they did, right? Guess I'll just wait. I'm inside of a metal building, Potzer. Thank you for advice, Senpai. Yeah, I tried. Yeah, Hypersonic, this is bad, dude. Let me look at the forecast. It should not be raining this much. There's only a small thing of rain where I am. How is it raining this much? Yeah, I'm so confused. There's like a small cloud over Plymouth, but south of that it's clear. But there's like another small cloud south of Plymouth right now, and that's where I am, and that's a little green boy cloud. It's not yellow like the storm over Providence right now. What the frick, man? %3 tax, nice. No, so, guys, there's a lot of trees around the garage. There's a lot of trees around the garage, so the rain noise tends to get, if it's windy, it'll blow all the water off of that, and it sounds a lot worse than it is. But it is raining sideways outside right now, so. You done? Alright. I'm putting the noise filter on. There. That should be better. But it might sound like my voice is getting warped. Yeah, I know, Jim. The rain is satisfying? You guys like it? Oh, alright. Well, no more rain ASMR. There you go. It is a nice sound. It's software ninja tuning. Yeah, it's a noise filter. Yeah, right. Because it's not bad. But they're gonna keep that pit at Starbase or fill it. Now read us something with a Morgan Freeman voice. Andy Dufresne came to Shawshank in the summer of 1947 for a reason his wife and the fella she was banging. I think it's safe to say that I liked Andy Dufresne from the start. It was raining in game, so I just went with it, but then you mentioned something about it. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Rain Clouds. Very cool. Dude. It's some heavy freaking rain if we can hear it through. So, like, that's how it used to sound before I finished furnishing this room. Before I put the insulation and the drop ceiling and stuff in. The fact that we can hear it through that is pretty ridiculous. Yeah, STX, of course. I don't think I can make my brain do that. Hypersonic. Okay. How'd that sound in there? The stream wasn't going when it happened, but yeah, it was loud. It was loud. Yeah, Wolfie, that's... The walls are insulated too, man. Yeah. Just messing with you? That metal roof, though, man. For real. Speaking of weather. Yeah. Dude, like the radar was showing a light rain cloud. It must have... The radar must have been like... I don't know, maybe I just looked at it wrong. It's freaking heavy freaking rain, man. But it was only for a second, so it was a tiny little speck of a rain cloud. We used to have metal bus stops sounded the same inside of them during the rain. Dude, I kind of like want to go check the back of the garage to make sure there's no puddles back there. But that means I'd have to go outside, and I don't really want to go outside. Alright, Max Fox. Call mechanic tomorrow. Okay, do it. Do it. Relays and fuses. Check them. Yeah, Dimit, it is a nice sound. I wouldn't mind just sitting here and chilling for a second. And right when I say that, it stops. Okay. Okay. Whoa. That was really loud. Man, the sound effects on this stream are A+. Yeah, yeah. Whoa. That was loud, man. Did you get a new UPS? No. I don't have the other one hooked up. I still have my spare. I forgot to do it. Oops. I kind of want to work on the truck, dudes, but I also want to play games. But see, my spare UPS is inside of the house, which is a good walk away. No, Linprod, that's cool though. Yeah, if it's not like modern Navy warfare, like World War II and forward, it doesn't really do anything for me. The amp's in the garage, man. Yeah, there was thunder, Orion. It was really loud. I'm kind of jonesing to play cities again, just because, like, I wanted to. I don't know about that KSP challenge. I don't really want to do that. Car mechanic simulator, work on a truck and play the game. I don't have CMS installed. Not that that's a big deal. Speaking on working on the truck, maybe this will convince you. I got you, bro. There you go. Or Make did it. Alright, what's up? Stormworks? Jeez, I can't play that. Damn it, man. I mean, it's awesome, but you gotta be careful about that music, man. Yeah, I can't. What has it got in it? Oh. That's not a 427 in there. So that motor did not come in a Shelby. If I'm looking at this right. Yeah, the side oiler. What about the 428? Yeah, neither did that. That's what I thought that was. It's a 429. Wow. Yes. Yeah, that motor. Yeah, I don't know if a 429 ever came in a 67 Shelby. That motor right there, the Boss 429, is a good motor, to say the least. That was Ford's answer to Chrysler's Hemi. Ford made a Hemi, and it was better than Chrysler's, but they didn't make a lot of it. They only made enough for what's called homologation rules for NASCAR so they could compete. So that's Ford's semi-Hemi. That thing makes... So the funny thing is that they... Ford lied on the horsepower ratings. They lied on the horsepower ratings, and they gave the wheel horsepower and not horsepower at the flywheel, which... Yeah, that you were supposed to give wheel horsepower. The thing makes like 600 horse. Yeah. 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 Yeah, that's the 429, man. It's a beast of a motor. And they did not, that motor did not come in a Shelby, if I'm remembering right. Hey, check this car out. They all lied, yeah, pretty much. That's a big motor for such a little car. Jeez. Yeah, they use the 429 in NASCAR. That's why that motor sounds so, like, disgustingly good. Like, blah, 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 blah. It's because it's a NASCAR engine. I think it would be if they wanted to use the camera motor. Yeah. Yeah, Japan did the same thing in the 80s and the early 90s, Al Desert. Every car just had 276 horsepower. Yeah, a 1JZ and 2Js making 276 horsepower. Yeah, sure. Sure. Yeah, you know, RB26 DET making 276 horsepower with twin turbos. Yeah, that's right. 3000 GT VR4, just 276 horse. V6 twin turbo all-wheel drive. Oh, it's only 276 horse. That's all you need. It was a gentleman's law. Al-Desert, a gentleman's law. Basically an agreement between all the Japanese automakers that nobody would try to get into a horsepower war. And then they all proceeded to lie and get into a horsepower war. Someone say Boss 429 NASCAR? Yep. You hear how deep the rev is? It's because it's a NASCAR engine. Yeah. Like a naval treaty. Yeah, bingo. Yeah, why? Oh yeah, everyone will limit our fleets to 100,000 tons displacement. And then promptly break that rule right after that. Yep. Oh, now you made me want to... I want to play Hearts. Should we play Hearts? I haven't played Hearts in forever, dude. Alright, fine. I hope